The advice and opinions expressed by the host of Autism Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. The Center for Autism and Related Disorders advises working with a board-certified behavior analyst who has experience with autism before starting any intensive behavioral intervention. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
But there are lots of different ways to get a hold of us, and some of those ways are the same and some are different. If you are watching us right now and you're watching us online, I shouldn't assume that you're watching us on autism-live.com, but you can watch us there. Let's put it that way. If you ever want to watch the live show, we're live from 9 in the morning until noon Pacific Standard Time. We're broadcasting to you from Los Angeles. So you can watch us on autism-live.com. If you've been watching us on Skills Live Online, you can continue watching us there for a period of time, but we will be moving completely over to autism-live.com. If you are seeing live on your screen right now and you see your question box next to that, you can pose questions to me. Just type it into that box. You don't have to log in or anything. Hit enter, and the question will show up here on my screen, and we can have a conversation in that way. If you are watching us on some other media, like on Blip TV, you're watching an iTunes podcast, you can still ask questions by emailing us. And we're going to show you that email address right now because I know that it's changed. There it is for you. So that's the way that you want to start to get a hold of us now. But there are lots of other ways that you can get a hold of us. You can call us from 9 in the morning until 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, or you can Skype us during the live show, and we will happily plug you directly into the show so that we can have a conversation via Skype. I believe we're going to be talking to at least one person via Skype later on today. Very excited about that. So you can always get a hold of us in terms of those ways, but there are myriads of other ways. You can see us on Facebook. There are lots of conversations happening there in myriads of different places. You can talk to us via Twitter. We would really enjoy speaking to you on Twitter. And we are on Blip, as I mentioned. So if you want to be able to watch episodes, watch them back and stop and rewind and go back over something, you might enjoy Blip. There are YouTube channels that you can watch us on. There's not just, we have the Skills Live channel, but now we want you to start watching the Autism Live channel. There's also a card channel and an A-word channel. We'll talk to you more about those later on throughout the day. And that's the one for the A-word. There's the iTunes. My goodness, how many ways do we possibly have for you to watch us and be in touch with us? We hope that you will participate in whatever way that you would like. I know that many of you really like to talk to us via Facebook, and that is fine. We enjoy that. And what I particularly like about that is that you guys are interacting with each other, because that's really the point here. We're here to help you to be more efficient and more effective working with your child on the autism spectrum. spectrum. And that's something that's very near and dear to my heart. I am an autism mom. That's who I am. I am not a behavior analyst. I'm not a behavior expert. I'm not an autism expert. I sometimes refer to myself as an expert in my own child, but then there are days when I would tell you that I'm not sure about that, right? Because he's changing. He's constantly changing. But my son was diagnosed with autism at 2.5. He is now 8.5, and it has been quite the journey through autism. He was very profoundly affected by autism, although he had the kind that he regressed into it very slowly. But by the time we were diagnosed, he was very profoundly affected. And now at 8.5, he is just wonderful. He is just wonderful. He is, and has been since kindergarten, in completely included neurotypical classrooms and excelling above or either at grade level or above grade level in all of his classes and doing really wonderful. He's a social butterfly. I will tell you that he does have some issues. He's still working some things out. I like to refer to him as not fully all the way cooked, not all the way done, but he's his own person and he's a love. And, when I think about the early days when I didn't know if my child was ever going to be able to say his own name, and where he is now and what our expectations are now, it's a wonderful and glorious thing. And I know that we got there because we had really quality ABA therapy. And, and there were other things that we did with that to get our child healthy, but ABA therapy is what gave me my child back. And so I'm forever grateful for that. And that's part of the reason why I'm here to share with you the hope, what's possible for our kids, what we can do, and how we as parents can educate ourselves in ABA and really be able to implement this if we have to go it alone. And I know that there are some of you out there who are, and bless your hearts. If you are going it alone, ABA, it's not an easy road, but it's doable. There are those of you who are out there who are doing it, and you have my highest respect. And the Center for Autism and Related Disorders has given me the ability to be here with you and give you the resources that you need so that you can be efficient and effective working with your children. Please use me. I always say use and abuse. I don't really mean abuse, but please ask for the things that you need. That's really what I'm here for, to be that conduit for you, to help you to get to the people you need to get the answers that you need and want. Your kids deserve it. You deserve it. And we don't have to reinvent the wheel, right? It takes a lot of time to reinvent a wheel. I know, I always think I want to do it on my own. I should be able to figure this out, right? No, not with autism. We need help. We need support. I'm here to support you, and I have access to a whole group of people who want to help you. So please take advantage of it. And for those of you who are working with ABA practitioners already and your child's been doing ABA, I hope that we can just help you to grow whatever program you have, for you to be able to uphold when they're not there, the consequences and the things that are working, so that you can get that much more progress. We know that progress is possible and available for all of our kids. So that's what we're going to be here doing. We like to start every single morning with something that I fondly refer to as the jargon of the day. Jargon in the autism world is just so intensive, right? And it can sink your battleship faster than anything else. We're in IEP season right now, so if you're talking to school officials, if you're having reports done for your child, you know how frustrating it is, right? I know I'm there. And I've been on this journey for a while. I still don't have all the jargon figured out. I really don't. So what can we do? We want to do the same kinds of things for ourselves that we do for our kids. Take it a little bit at a time. How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. So let's take these jargon terms, one word, one phrase, and we're going to demystify them one at a time. We give you an actual definition, which is sometimes even more jargon intensive than what the word was, and then we give you a working definition that's not as exact, not as precise, but will help us to have a beginning understanding so that we can start to piece these words together and make some sense with them. So today's word is antecedent. This is something that we will be bringing up all the time on the show. It's really, really important that we understand what an antecedent is. Okay, so our actual definition is anything that occurs or is present immediately before the behavior of interest. Okay, not that difficult as a definition, but let's take it a notch down and make it even more user-friendly. And our working definition is what happened before. When we talk about behavior, and anything that our child does is behavior, right? And all behavior is communication. It's really important for us to pull the behavior apart into three different sections. They call it a three-term contingent. I like to refer to it as the ABCs of the behavior, because that I can remember, right? I want to keep it as simple as possible. The A is the antecedent. It's what happened before the behavior. The B is the behavior. We can remember that. And the C is the consequence. And so anything that our child does, if we want to look at a behavior and go, I want to look at this very specific behavior. Let's say that the child is spitting. So we know that the behavior is spitting. Well, what happens directly before the child engages in the behavior? That's the antecedent. Is it that the child ate something tart like applesauce and then the child spit? Or did somebody tickle the child and the child spit? Or did somebody spit at the child and then the child spit? Whatever happened directly before, that is the antecedent. Then the consequence is what happened directly afterward, right? So it may be that, somebody spit and then the child spit and then everybody in the room laughed. So the antecedent is that somebody spit at the child, behavior is that the child spit back, and the consequence is that everybody laughed. Now, if the child finds people laughing, reinforcing, do we think that behavior is going to happen more often or less often? I'm going to guess that that behavior is going to happen more often if the child likes it when people laugh. Not every child likes it when people laugh. The child might hate it when other people laugh, in which case that behavior probably isn't going to happen as often anymore, right? But what we can see when we look at behaviors is if we look at the antecedent, the behavior, and the consequence, and we keep looking at them really concisely, taking records, we'll start to see patterns. And rule number one of ABA is that in order for any behavior to be maintained, meaning that it's going to happen over and over and over again, it has to be reinforcing. We don't do behaviors that are unpleasant over and over and over again, right? Unless there's some kind of reward at the end. And most of us aren't good at the delayed gratification, right? So we can take that knowledge and we can use it to increase behaviors that we want to see more of and decrease behaviors that we want to see less of. And that's really the long and short of ABA. So whenever we're talking about ABA, we're going to talk about the antecedent, the behavior, and the consequence. It really is a little bit like being a detective and figuring out, okay, what happened directly before that initiated the behavior, and then what response did it get? When we know these things, we have the keys to the kingdom because we can change something. It may be that we change the antecedent, right? And if we change the antecedent, the behavior changes. Or it may be that we change the consequence, and when we change the consequence, the behavior changes. But if we know all three, we have great possibility to change everything. And that is a wonderful thing. And I've seen that happen with my son. Change a behavior and you change your life, right? It's a wonderful thing. Okay. We always also have a question of the day for you. And the question of the day, we really want to get you participating in a conversation. We want to know your thoughts. We want to give you an opportunity to vent. We want you to be able to participate with each other. So our question today is, what makes you angriest about autism? I know I'm asking for trouble here, and that's okay. We can take it. I really want you to let us know what really ticks you off, what tears your ticket, what really makes you angry. Boy, I can think of so many different things off the top of my head, but where I would like to go today is people who have opinions who haven't been there. It just makes me so mad. It's so easy for people to armchair quarterback autism, don't you think? And that really infuriates me. Unless, I understand people want to look at it as this dispassionate thing that, oh, well, it's this, it's that, it's whatever. But there's a really emotional side to autism. And unless you have been there and seen your child deteriorate, you haven't been there. And really, you shouldn't offer up a whole lot of opinions about what it is, what it looks like. And there's a whole host of people who do that, and they infuriate me. That's what makes me the angriest about autism. But I want to know from you, what makes you the angriest about autism? Again, there's all those different ways that we mentioned that you can talk to us, but one way that I want to really encourage you to do it is on Facebook. Please log on to our Facebook, and the question should be there right now, and you can answer it in a couple of different places. We have Center for Autism and Related Disorders. We post the question there, but it will also be on the Autism Live page on Facebook. I encourage you, because I will have an opportunity to read some of your responses later on, and I really want to know what makes you mad. Let's get it off our chests, right? I was going to say off our shoulders, but it's that too. It's a weight, right? And maybe we can even laugh about it, because if we can laugh about what makes us angry, then we get back to the business of doing what we have to do, which is, by the way, helping our kids and helping ourselves. All right. We also have always a topic of the day. Topic of the day is something that everything that we talk about during the day, will sort of filter it through the topic of the day. And a lot of times we will revert to the topic of ABA for beginners, because this is a huge topic. ABA, which stands for Applied Behavior Analysis, it's the only scientifically proven effective treatment for autism. And what I particularly love about ABA, well, there's so many things I love about ABA, but what I'm especially excited to talk to you about is the fact that this is effective for all of our kids. It's not like I can say to you, well, you know what, guess what? This is really effective for our high-functioning kids who have Asperger's, and everybody else, I'm really sorry, I don't know what to do for you. That's not the truth. The truth is that this big wide spectrum that our kids live on, where they're all so completely different, ABA has been shown scientifically to be effective at producing results with all of our kids. Now, they're all going to end up someplace different. We know that, right? But as an individual, as a parent, I don't want to speak for you, but I wanted progress. Yes, I wanted the whole Megillah. I wanted my child to be infinitely better. But you know that as a parent, that comes one step at a time. And all of our kids can make progress. And the other thing that really upsets me is when people belittle any kind of progress and say, well, you know, is that really worth it? Yes, when it's your child. Toilet training is huge. That's huge progress. And I don't care for it when anybody belittles that or says that that's not huge, monumental, and life-changing. It is. It absolutely is. For a child to be able to tie their own shoes, for a child to be able to make eye contact, for a child to be able to point to something, to be able to say, here is what I want to eat. Huge progress. And, you know, our kids can make this kind of progress and ever so much more, and ever so much more. There are children who have had ABA who are walking around in our world and are completely indistinguishable, that you can meet and have absolutely no idea that they ever had an autism spectrum diagnosis. You know? So every place on that spectrum, there is progress to be had, and all of our kids will end up someplace different, but it is effective for all of our kids. But because ABA, it's a huge, huge field, and there's so much, and our kids are so individual, there's so much to talk about. So I like to go back to basics a lot and talk about ABA for beginners. I do that for you as much as for myself. Because even 6 years in now to ABA, because my son had intensive ABA for 5 years. He graduated from his ABA program last summer, but I continue to do ABA with a skills program at home, and every once in a while I have to go back to basics too, because we're human beings, and it has to do with behavior, and I'm busy behaving, and I had a whole lot of behavior on board before I came to ABA. So sometimes I blow it, and sometimes, guess what, you're going to blow it too. The great thing is that we have another opportunity 2 seconds later to behave in a different way. And if that sounds funny, I want you to know that we're not just talking about your children's behavior, we're talking about our behavior too. And I think that ABA is the best parent training that there is. And I remember the first time that I talked to parents about ABA, and they were saying, that we should really try it with our child. That was the phrase that the mom had said to me was, "This is the best parent training we ever got." And I thought, well, that's really interesting. And my husband and I got really excited about it. And that's really the truth of what it was. Okay, our our schedule for today. Some of the different topics, you're going to see if you've been watching the show, we've got a slightly different format that we're trying out, shorter segments. We want to hear from you if you like that. Some of the different topics that we're going to be talking about today: healthy eating, success with ABA, and it says that our guest is Sienna Greener-Wooten, but unfortunately, she is not able to be with us today, and I should have changed that. So sorry. But we are going to have Tom Hibben with us. If you saw yesterday, Babbel came out with the top 30 blogs, autism blogs for this year, and number one was Tom Hibben's Adventures in Asperger's, and he's been with us on the show before, and he's going to be dropping in with us around 11 o'clock, and we'll be talking to him about why he thinks I think I know why he got the Babbel Award. I'd love to say that it has something to do, because the top two are people who we've had on the show. In fact, we've put in a call to Sunday Stillwell, who is the number 2 blog, which is Adventures in Extreme Parenthood, and both of whom have been on the show before, and I would love to say that it has something to do with them being on our show, but I think it's just a coincidence. They've worked really hard, and they have awesome blogs that have wonderful senses of humor, and we really recommend them. But we're going to be talking to Tom later on about what it means to him to have gotten this prestigious award or standing. So that'll be really fun. We have a host of topics to be talking about today. We're going to talk about some cognitive tips, how we can help our children to build their cognitive skills. And we're also going to be talking about some motor tips as well, how we can help our kids to be better in terms of those kinds of things. So a really exciting day, lots of stuff to cover, but always we will throw our schedule to the side for your questions, anything that you would like to talk about. If you have a concern, a suggestion, a topic that you particularly want covered, write into us, call in, Skype in, tweet us, what do they call it? Facebook in, I don't know, check in on Facebook, whatever that is, and be a part of the conversation here. We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we'll have more from Autism Live. Stick with us.
Mostly the behavior started at night, but it was invading the day, where he would just speak one syllable and babble and pace around.
When she was a year old, she lost speech. She did never seem to request me for anything, even for food. He told me over the phone that I should just put her in an institution. I was devastated. What's an institution? A hospital. Yeah, isn't that nice?
He told me that it was possible or likely that Ruffin would never be employed, that he would never work productively, that he would not know that I loved him, nor would he love me, nor would he be likely to marry.
There's a 50% chance that he won't be able to talk at all, but if he does talk, he will only be able to, make simple desire requests. I want, things like that. And probably by the time he was 10, he'd be in a home.
Doreen told me that he would recover, and Doreen told me that he would go to regular kindergarten.
I really have a very normal kid now, and lots of normal worries, but not extraordinary ones.
Welcome back to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod, and we're webcasting to you live from the Center for Autism and Related Disorders headquarters in Tarzana, California. And if you're just tuning in, yes, we've had a little bit of a name change, and we are now Autism Live. If you've been watching us as Skills Live, we're just doing a little housekeeping here, rearranging things, and we think that Autism Live suits us better. So, but we want to hear from you. Write in and tell us what you think. We're changing our format a little bit, and we'd love to hear from you, suggestions, topics that you'd like for us to cover, and what you think about the changes that we're making. I wanted to share with you right now a motor tip. From time to time, we're going to talk about different skill areas that we want to increase in our children. And one of the areas that we'll talk about frequently is motor skills. If you have a child who, depending on the child's age, but if once your child has been flagged as having potential issues, you will probably be asked to do an entire battery of assessments. And a lot of times the school district, if you get to a school age, or if your child has been flagged as somebody who has potential issues before school age, the school district will be brought in, and they will certainly recommend that you have a whole battery of assessments done. And one of the series of assessments will have to do with motor skills. And you'll hear them talking about fine motor skills and gross motor skills. There's lots of other areas, though, too, with motor skills. In particular, too, that I want to talk about are visual motor skills and oral motor skills. I know a lot of times we think of speech and we think of that whole mechanism. We don't really talk as much about the motor skills that are required for teaching speech. And it's kind of a separate area. But if you stop and think about it, as a child, when a child comes out of the womb, they have these very fleshy faces that are not firm and making sounds and wouldn't be capable of saying the kinds of words that we need to be able to say when we're much older. When my child was born, I have a very good friend who showed up on the first day in the hospital and looked right into his face and said to him, he's 4 hours old, and she said, "Say oscillating sprinkler." And obviously we all laughed, because there's no way that a newborn baby, even if they had the ability to speak, which they don't at that point, they wouldn't have all of the musculature to be able to say oscillating sprinkler. But as they progress and they grow, and their desire to speak comes together with everything else, they start to utter sounds in a typically developing child, and the sounds aren't distinguishable, right? They know what they want to be saying, but they can't quite say them. But over time, the musculature comes along with their desire and their ability to speak, so that the words are fully formed. We showed you a while back a clip from a TED conference, and I thought it was amazing. The scientist who had his entire house outfitted with cameras, so that he and his wife were expecting a new baby. The baby was born. They came home from the hospital, and these cameras in their home and these microphones in their home literally videotaped and captured every single waking moment of this child's life, I think for his entire first 5 years. And then they took the data and did lots of different things with it. But one of the things that they did in the TED conference that was so impressive was that they took every single incident when he attempted to say water and squished it all together over the course of a year and a half. And what was interesting for me as an autism parent, and my child, I only have the one child, so while I had been around so many other children, my child's trajectory was so different that it kind of skewed, and I forget sometimes how it is for that typical child. And I tend to think of them as just, having steady progress all in one direction, and that everything goes up all the time. And it was really interesting to me to listen to that 30-second clip of the child was trying to say water. So it starts out and the child says, blah, 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 and then it kind of gets into gaga, 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 gawa, 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 wah, 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 gaga, wah, until finally the child, a year and a half later, arrives at water. And it's very distinct, water, that he says. But what was really fascinating to me were that, sometimes he would say waga, 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 and you would think, oh, he's getting the wa sound, but then he would go back to gaga. So it wasn't this straight trajectory, which I have to say made me feel a little bit better as a parent. But I want to remind you that during that whole time for that typically developing child, he had musculature that was working hard to accommodate, to arrive at this place where he was going to be able to say water. For our kids, and our kids are, again, all different places in the spectrum, but remember that they didn't find it as reinforcing or as easy as the typically developing child. And so that desire and that ability to keep attempting the sound, that approximation of the sound, probably didn't happen as much. Now, I'm not speaking for all of our kids, but for a lot of our kids where speech is an issue, they weren't as reinforced for whatever reason. So we might get to 5 years of age with a child who at this point is now wanting to communicate, but is not going to be as reinforced by it because a sound comes out, the musculature isn't there, so the sound isn't as clear. And where for a child who typically developed at 5 and says, I want a cookie, and they're getting the cookie, so it's reinforcing to them. For a 5-year-old who says, right, which to them means I want a cookie, and they're expecting the cookie doesn't come because nobody understands them, it's not reinforcing. And the child tantrums because why would I go through the difficulty of saying, I want a cookie, if you're not going to give it to me, right? So a big part of the speech development we're going to get to is through that oral motor. We can't leave that out. We need to make it reinforcing for our kids. We need for them to start, they have to work double time to catch up, to get that oral motor stuff going, and to develop those muscles so that we are going to get to the clearer language. And how do we do that? Well, you know how to eat the elephant, one bite at a time, but we have to make it reinforcing for them. And I think because for our kids, especially who are language delayed, and again, that's not all of our kids, really important that if we're going to do the work, why not do double duty, get them making sound at the same time? I know that's not everybody's way of working on oral motor. Some people just have the kids making the faces and doing that, you know, those kinds of exercises. Well, you know, okay. And if you can get a child to find that reinforcing, fabulous. Really hard to do, first of all. But second of all, because our kids are, if they are delayed in language acquisition, why not do double duty and get them to make the sound as well, right? You're getting 2 for the price of 1. So we can work on exercises with kids, but again, it's got to be that it's reinforcing. And a lot of times, in and of itself, it isn't reinforcing. So we're going to pair whatever exercises we do with them with something that is personally reinforcing to the child. What do I mean when I say reinforcing? I'm talking about when you stop and think about if somebody were to say to you, you know, I want you to get up and jump up and down. And you would say to them, I don't feel like it, right? But what would make it worthwhile for you to get up and jump up and down? If somebody said, I'll pay $1,000, I don't know about you, I would get up and jump up and down because it would be worth it to me, right? Now, if you want me to get up and jump up and down and stand on my head, I don't know for $1,000. Maybe I would for $1,000. You know, but what's reinforcing enough to get you to do the work? Right? If you think about this, this happens in your life every single day. You make choices, even at your job, about what you want to do versus what you don't want to do and what you're going to get for it, right? It's all about currency, and currency is about more than just money. We do all kinds of things to get all kinds of things. So it's not that out of line that we could be offering something to our child in the early stages of getting them to do something that has nothing maybe to do with what we want them to do. So let's say that your child absolutely loves cherry lifesavers, and cherry lifesavers for your individual child are not detrimental to their health. They don't have a problem with the small amount of sugar, and they don't have a problem with whatever else is in the cherry lifesavers. So it's okay for your child to have the cherry lifesavers. So it may be that you set up a trial of a certain number of times the child says something, and then they get a piece of a cherry lifesaver. I wouldn't give them the whole cherry lifesaver, and there's a couple of reasons why. First of all, you're going to get to the point if they have a whole cherry lifesaver, it's going to take them a long time, and you're not going going to get back to the lesson. Second of all, very quickly, after one whole cherry lifesaver, it's not going to be that exciting to them anymore. You're going to have them do the next series of exercises, and they already had a cherry lifesaver. So, leave me alone. Right? I'm done. I've had my cherry lifesaver for the day. And it's going to get expensive. And if you're going to keep doing things over and over again, it's going to be a lot of sugar for your child. So I would suggest, either crushing up the cherry lifesaver so there's just a very little bit that the child gets, that it's consumed very quickly, and that they want more, right? Or, finding something like that that's very easy, that's over quickly. Now, does it have to be food? No, it doesn't have to be food. It can be getting to play a game. One of the things that I love for kids that are, if they're into it, and again, it has to be something they're into, those marble runs that you can put together in lots of different ways. So they're really great for constructive play, but it comes with marbles, and you can give the marble to the child. They put it in the top of the marble and they can watch it run down, and that's, for some children, that's very reinforcing. And so it's wonderful because you have a beginning, a middle, and end. It's over and back to work, and the children find it really exciting to do. A lot of people are using devices now that they get to play, maybe a minute of a game or watch a minute of a funny video. That could be something that's really reinforcing to a child. It could be playing with a toy for a small period of time. But when you're first starting out with ABA, and I promised that we were going to do everything for ABA for beginners today, you want to make sure that the toy that you give is something that when you go to take it away after a minute, you're not going to be creating a bigger problem. So if it's a toy that's got like a beginning, middle, and end kind of thing to it, that maybe you wind it up and it does a little thing and it lasts 60 seconds, you go, great, so the toy's done and we'll get it back in a minute. We don't want to be torturing a child saying, here, you can play with the toy for a minute and now I'm going to yank it away from you, right? So it's really good if it has a very succinct end to it. And this is going to be true of no matter what exercise we're doing. Whether it's a motor, oral motor, or whether we're working on something with cognition, we want to make sure that it's reinforcing to the child, that there is real, clear reinforcement that is very reinforcing to them, and that it comes immediately after they've done the thing that's really difficult. Also, another part of this, because we're not going to spend our whole lives following our children around and giving them a toy for every time that they do something that is a skill that we want to see, right? We want to make sure that every time we're giving them that reinforcement, whether it's a piece of a cherry lifesaver, or it's a marble for a marble run, or a different toy, or an iPhone to play with for 30 to 60 seconds, whatever it is, we want to pair that thing with praise. Or something that's more socially mediated. So for instance, if we get the child and we're having the child, let's say that the oral motor exercise is to go la 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 and do their tongue on the top of their the roof of their mouth. That's the exercise because we want to strengthen the tip of the tongue. And we get them to mimic us and do it 5 times, and we've promised them that at the end they're going to get the marble to go do the marble run. And so the child does the la 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 la, and we go, yay, good job, marble. Right? So that we're saying, yay. Now, the child may not find that exciting to begin with, but over time, because we constantly paired it with the thing that was reinforcing, eventually the child does find the yay exciting. So over time, we fade the marble or the lifesaver or the iPhone or whatever the toy is. We can save that now for a more difficult task, and we can just praise the child for doing the la 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 all on its own. It's going to be reinforcing enough. In the beginning, that seems like a really far away thing, but trust me, our kids get there, and they get there fairly quickly. So that's our little motor tip for today. Don't leave out the oral motor aspect of the motor. We always talk about the fine motor and we talk about the gross motor, but the oral motor is a really important part of it too, because we want our kids to be able to speak and to be reinforced by it. And the only way that really it's reinforcing in and of itself is if they can be understood. And that's where the oral motor component is so important. Okay, we're going to take a break and we're going to come back in just a minute. Stick with us.
I'm grateful for Autism Speaks because they allow families like me to have hope.
They're working towards having these children live better lives.
There's a space for you. Yeah, there's a world for you, and there's a community that is behind you.
And one that has really been able to be the singular voice for people who are involved with and who care about autism.
I do have autism, but I don't let that become a disability for me. Autism Speaks is going to continue to help those who need it, and just look at all the stuff they've done so far and you will be impressed.
3, 2, 1.
And you need to support the walks. We have to raise awareness, but we also have to raise funds to do the work.
I'm grateful for Autism Speaks for one main reason, is they are allowing me to focus on the research.
The work that Autism Speaks has been doing is critical for keeping autism research on the radar screen.
We proclaimed 2 April as the World Autism Awareness Day. I'm very proud of the UN and thankful Autism Speaks.
Getting the health mandate bill passed in New Jersey particularly, we needed to be able to make an argument, not just do this because it's the right thing to do, but do it because it's cost effective.
When everyone else told me nothing was wrong with my son, I got information from a website that told me something wasn't right.
I am so proud of Autism Speaks for creating these beautiful ad campaigns, which have reached people who are not affected by autism and have also created a greater climate of compassion and understanding.
It's been really great for Bachman to have gotten involved with Autism Speaks early on. I think everybody here feels like they really make a difference.
To make sure that we generate as much money as we can for Autism Speaks so we can all solve this puzzle together.
There's no way we could have come this far without our families, without our supporters to date, but there's so much farther we have to go. And everybody's invited to join this cause. We need all the help we can get to make the difference we know we can make.
Welcome back to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod, and we are webcasting to you live from the Center for Autism and Related Disorders headquarters in Tarzana, California. And if you just tuned in, we have a new show title, Autism Live now. We welcome you to the program. I wanted to take just a minute and talk a little bit about our healthy eating tip for the day. We know that one of the biggest things that we need to do for our children on this journey through autism is to get them healthy, right? It's something, whether our child was on the spectrum or not, as parents, we would feel very adamant about that. But it sort of steps up when our child has autism. And as a parent of a child with autism, I know it can be so difficult sometimes because it seems like it's all, on different playing fields that, they're getting your child healthy and then there's the challenging behavior in the beginning. But I think that you'll find that you only help yourself with everything if you get your child as healthy as possible. And there are lots of different considerations in terms of getting your child healthy. But one of the ones I want to talk about today is the types of food that we put into our child's body. And I'm speaking specifically about being as organic as we possibly can. I know I was so resistant to this for so long, and you think, oh, autism is so expensive, and how on earth am I going to pay for organic fruits and vegetables? And if your child is somebody who doesn't love fruits and vegetables and you're paying so much extra for the organic ones, it seems like it's a losing situation. But there was a new report that came out a couple of years ago from the President's Cancer Panel that eating produce without pesticides would help to reduce your risk of getting cancer and other diseases, is what they arrived at. And they recommended, they made a list of the worst offenders and the least offenders in terms of pesticides. So they came up with the Dirty Dozen and the Clean 15. And I think that there's some really good guidelines here for suggestions. We're going to put that all through a filter at the end, but there are some fruits and vegetables that we absolutely, if we're going to buy them, we want to pay the extra and get them organic. Now, I realize that this was a study about cancer, but if we're trying to stay as healthy as possible, and for a lot of our kids, we see that their ability to handle illness and process toxins is compromised. And I say that completely, as a parent who has gone through that with my child. So if that isn't your child, then I'm not talking to you. But I think we all want our children to be as healthy as possible. So by using the Dirty Dozen and the Clean 15, they estimated that you can reduce the amount of toxins you consume on a daily basis by as much as 80%. That's a lot. Okay. So here are the Dirty Dozen. Are you ready? Celery, peaches, strawberries, apples, domestic blueberries, nectarines, sweet bell peppers. I know, I just about cried when I saw that one. The green vegetables, which they're classifying as spinach, kale, and collard greens, cherries, potatoes, imported grapes, and lettuce. All right, if you stop and think about all of those things, they're pretty much things that you eat with the peel on. And that is sort of a really good gauge because it's something that's in the field, and so it's going to pick up things, and all you're doing is washing and not doing anything else. You're not peeling any protective layer off. So that gives you a really good indication of the kinds of things that you want to be wary of. The only one on that list that I feel doesn't really fit that category are potatoes, but it is very clearly on the Dirty Dozen list. And I'm wondering if that's because it's literally submerged. But carrots are not on there, so it's very interesting to me. Okay, so now let's take a second here to talk about the Clean 15. And again, you're going to notice that these are the kinds of things that have some sort of peel to them, some sort of protective layer. These are the ones that they're saying, you know what, if you can't buy organic, if you can afford to buy organic for everything, why not? But if you can't afford to buy organic, that these are the kinds of vegetables that you can buy conventionally grown and you're not risking as much. In their tests for this particular study that we're talking about, these vegetables and fruits bore little to no traces of pesticides. Now, I will tell you that that was after having been washed with a very high pressure wash system that none of us owns. So, but if when it comes down to dollars, we want our kids to be healthy, but we have to feed them, right? So here's the Clean 15. Onions, avocados, sweet corn, pineapples, mangoes, sweet peas, asparagus, kiwi fruit, cabbage, eggplant, cantaloupe, watermelon, grapefruit, and sweet potatoes. So I don't understand why the potatoes, and then sweet onions. Okay, so, again, most of those are things that have a pretty good peel, although that's not true of asparagus, so there goes my theory in terms of that. In any case, there were 49 types of produce that were rated on the scale altogether, so there are a whole bunch of things in the middle. But if you want to find out more about the study or more about the vegetables that were in the middle or the individual rating for each one of them, you can go to www.foodnews.org, and they have those studies there. So let me go over the Dirty Dozen and the Clean 15. So again, and I know when you think of these things on the Dirty Dozen, there are several that are kid kind of favorites, right? Celery, peaches, strawberries, apples. So that means all the apples, all the applesauce, really beneficial for us to buy the organic. Domestic blueberries, nectarines, sweet bell peppers, spinach, kale, and collard greens, cherries, Potatoes, so when we're talking about the French fries and the mashed potatoes, much better to buy the organic. Imported grapes and lettuce. And the lettuce is hard to get organic, I have to say. But on the Clean 15, onions, avocados, sweet corn, pineapples, mango, sweet peas, asparagus, kiwi fruit, cabbage, eggplant, cantaloupe, watermelon, grapefruit, sweet potatoes, and sweet onions. I'm laughing a little bit because this one doesn't read as much like little kid food, except for things like the watermelon and maybe the cantaloupe. But there's a whole lot of things there that I'm going, yeah, I don't think your typical kid really loves. So when you're at the grocery store and when you're considering what to buy organic, these are some guidelines to follow because, again, this study is saying that you can reduce the amount of toxins you consume on a daily basis by as much as 80% by looking at the Dirty Dozen and the Clean 15 and buying appropriately. I encourage you to go to your local farmer's market and ask the farmers there about what we know is that it takes a long time for a farm to go organic. I believe it's in most states it's 7 years. So you might find that there is a farmer who is in the process of going organic, is not all the way there, but is not using pesticides now and maybe hasn't for a couple of years. Maybe they're still 3 years away from being deemed organic, but there are not going to be any pesticides on your child's vegetables. And that's a really good way to compromise. I know it's spring, it's been a long winter, and the farmers markets in a lot of places haven't been open, but they're starting to open now. So that's a really good, healthy alternative. You're going to get those fresh vegetables. You might even be able to start a relationship with the farmer, and that's a really good thing. You're supporting a local farmer and giving your child things that are healthy for them and going to help them in the long run. I know that we had a big push in our family last summer to go organic, and we did go organic, and I certainly felt a difference. And I would tell you too that I saw a bit of a difference in my son as well. So I encourage you to do the best that you can. We don't want to make ourselves crazy, right? But think of the Clean 15, the Clean 15 and the Dirty Dozen. And again, you can if you Google Clean 15 and Dirty Dozen, you'll find that it's all over the internet. But if you want more information, you can go to www.foodnews.org. We're going to take a break and we're going to be back in just a minute.
Welcome. I'm here today with Cecilia Knight, who is the Director of Training for the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. And today we're talking about how to keep kids healthy.
I think it's really important for, of course, every child to have a pediatrician that the parent is comfortable with and that the parent is seeing regularly. Someone who's an expert on autism, who understands the issues related to autism.
A lot of kids who are on the spectrum are a little bit obsessed with one area of food. Any suggestions?
I think it's really difficult for parents because many of their children either self-limit or they don't like certain textures. Their pediatricians, after testing them, see that they are deficient in iron and other nutrients that are so important. And so it does reach the levels where many parents need to seek help. Maybe from something like SOS, Specialized Outpatient Services, or another feeding clinic in their area. Someone who can address specifically, how do I get my child to eat this texture? How do I get my child to eat something other than French fries?
So what advice do you have for parents in terms of realizing what's the autism and what's something else that has to be addressed?
As we all know, every child is different. And from one child to the next on the spectrum, their symptoms are different and what they struggle with medically is different. You do run into a problem with many physicians saying, well, that's just symptomatic of autism, and so we're not going to treat it. And I think it's really important to be sure that if they need to see a neurologist to address seizures, that they're getting that done. if they need to see a nutritionist because of the food issues, that they're getting that done, all while being treated by a pediatrician who maybe can help oversee that. But I think it's not a great idea to dismiss everything as that's just autism.
I always try to imagine a child trying to do therapy while they've got all these biological things going on, and,
Right.
and how could they possibly concentrate?
Right. Well, our clients are just like you and I. It's very difficult to concentrate if I have a headache or if I have an upset stomach. And so I think it's really important to first give the child the opportunity to feel better, whatever that means for that child, because again, each child is very different. But I have had children that once you address a specific food allergy, then the symptoms of stomach pain or, a sty in their eye that wouldn't go away or constant diarrhea, until we addressed that medical issue, it's very difficult to concentrate on treatment.
Sure.
And then once they could address those issues, then treatment, went more the way we were hoping it would go.
Absolutely. And there's all kinds of things that would come under that heading, right? If they had sleep disorders, if we already said food allergies, but what about vision problems?
Absolutely. The hard thing is, depending on the child's ability to communicate, sometimes it's difficult to have vision tested or to have hearing tested. So working in combination with someone who could help expose the child to the contingencies that would be in place, for example, for a vision test, and practicing or being prepared may help in those situations, but it's definitely a real issue.
Wow. So maybe even using your ABA program to practice
Right.
for the vision test.
Right. It's very difficult for parents to find a pediatrician often that they connect with, but I encourage them to keep looking for a pediatrician who has specific experience and has other clients maybe with autism, and they have a good rapport with other parents. Someone who can listen to their concerns about sleep or about seizures or about eating and not dismiss them. Right. Because, sometimes we uncover things that are surprising or that were unexpected, just like with the rest of us. So it's important to keep looking for answers, I think, to all of those issues.
And the healthier they are, the happier they're going to be, and the quicker they're going to learn.
Absolutely.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Welcome back. All good reasons why we should be working hard to get our kids as healthy as possible. It's one of those things, just makes sense, right? I know sometimes it's hard, but we can do it. We really can. And we'll give you more tips from time to time, especially about how to help them to eat those vegetables, right? I want to talk about briefly, and I want to show you a clip from the A Word. This is one of my favorite things, you guys. I just love this series for so many different reasons. If you haven't been with us before, the A Word is a documentary, an ongoing documentary that's being made here at the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. And they're following a little boy, Jack Riley, who was diagnosed at about 2.5, I believe. In the series, he's not yet 3, though about to turn 3. And what's amazing to me is they're following him after the diagnosis up through getting ABA and seeing on a weekly basis what's happening with ABA therapy. They're following him and they're following the family. So you get to see both sides of it. You're seeing the therapy and seeing the progress that's happening with him, and I think we're all getting some really good examples of really good quality ABA therapy in the arc of how ABA therapy works, but we're also seeing the emotional toll on the parents, because this is not easy. And anybody who tells you that it's easy and that it's all happy flowers and all that, they're kidding you. They really are. I don't want to say that they're lying to you, because I'm sure that they mean well. This is not easy. Even when there's progress, it's not easy. It's emotional and it's hard work. This is hard work for this little boy, and this is hard work for this family. It's worth it, though. But I'm a big believer in keeping it real and being honest about it, that it's tough, and day to day, it's an uphill battle. And I know some of you are watching and thinking, wow, but I wish I had access to this. And stick with us, because we talk all the time about how you can have have access to this. But, I can say that to you today in a way that I couldn't have said to you 2 years ago, that every single child has the ability to get ABA therapy right now because you as parents have the ability to do CARDI learning. If nothing else, you can do CARDI learning and you can become a person who is delivering the ABA. That is very much a possibility. And you can use skills as a curriculum to be able to help yourselves to know which lessons to teach and how to teach them. But it's the exact same lessons that Jack Riley is having in his programs. But I want you to take a look at this week's episode of Jack Riley, and then we'll talk about what we saw at the other end. Take a look. The A word.
He's a happy, fun kid, and he was a happy, fun kid when he was diagnosed too, and I don't think at the time we really understood that you can be happy, fun, and still have autism. He's sort of giving us a hint that we don't need to worry so much, that he'll conquer whatever it is that he's dealing with.
Oh, that could be interesting. Oh no, the deck fell. You're okay.
It's okay, buddy. Daddy will hold it. Let's try again. Try again.
I know that it's very important to him, whether he knows it or not, that he has both of us in his corner. So for the dads, that's all I would say, is be in his corner, do the best you can, and if you screw up, just be involved. You're going to make mistakes, but just be involved. It's not going to go away, and quite frankly, you're way more valuable to helping him than you think you are in the beginning. There were times I thought I'm useless, and that's gone away.
He does when he sees doors and books. Knock, knock, knock. Ding dong, ding dong. Hello. So hello, don't you? Hello. Who is it? Hello. Good night, friends. I'm sleepy too. Wake up. Wake up, but I'm sleepy. Wake up.
He's just really clever now. More creative when he's playing. He solves little issues or problems that get in his way, and he just smiles a lot while he's doing it, so we think he's enjoying it.
Yeah, you those are bubble to top. Oh my God! Oh my goodness, that was so impressive. Good job. We added a new program, Gaining Attention, because we've been noticing that he wants our attention, but he'll like throw things or doesn't know appropriately how to get your attention. So we're going to be teaching him to tap our shoulder as well as call our name when he wants our attention. Twice.
This is Jessica's first attempt in teaching Jack Riley how to gain attention. At first, Jessica tempts Jack Riley with an item he wants, then prompts him the entire way so he can practice and learn an appropriate way to gain attention.
Look, do you want the fire truck? Look, look what I have. Do you want it? Yes. Okay, do this, look. Say Jessica! Good job, try again, ready? Ready? Say Jessica! Say Jessica! Oh, what do you want? Oh, okay, here you go. There you go. Okay, do this.
As Jack Riley learns how to gain attention, Jessica's prompts will fade until he does it independently.
You want to try again? Try again. Okay. Yes? Yes? What do you want? What do you want? Oh, there you go. That was very good, Jack. Yes? 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 Yes. Okay. That's good, mister. You're getting better at that. And we also added a program called Inhibition, when mom or dad are doing things like getting the mail or getting things from the car. He's had episodes where he'll just run.
Wait.
Wait.
Stop. Wait. No, wait. Stop.
If this is as bad as it gets, and we've caught it, then we're great. I think what I didn't realize is that there's always going to be new things that he's going to encounter. There's always going to be new behaviors that he discovers, and that's part of being a kid, as well as the autism.
No. Thank you.
This way.
We can go in this way.
Okay, so you see why I love this, right? Because we get to hear the emotional side from the parents, and I'm all about hearing the emotional side, because I don't know about you, but I need to know that I'm not the only one in this. And I'm not the only one who's feeling the way that I'm feeling, or felt the way that I felt, or, I do think that sometimes just hearing the words out of somebody else's mouth, hearing that dad say how important it is for, I'm going to get emotional, for him to be involved and for dads to stick in there, and for him to admit that in the beginning, I thought I was useless, right? Doesn't that cut right to the core? And I can't wait to go home and talk to my husband about that and say, did you in the beginning feel like you were useless? And when did that change for you? Because I'm going to guess, it just resonates, because I can remember a time before we started ABA when the sort of state supported intervention that they had granted us was a group setting for my son, and we would go in this music room, and my son had a sensory reaction to it, and he just screamed, and I can remember my husband trying to sit on the floor with my son and trying to get him just to sit and listen to the music with the other kids, and just, my son would claw and flail and scream and arch his back, and just the look on my husband's face. I know I felt useless, so I'm sure that he had some of that feeling too, and it was, a really rough time. But to be able to hear from somebody else, I thought I was useless, but now I know I'm not. Whew, right? That's where we all want to get to, is feeling like we're not useless. And I will tell you that ABA gives you the power and the ability and the steps. And we've heard from this dad. If this is the first episode you've seen, go back and watch from the beginning, because we've heard from this dad that sometimes he gets mad, which is also very human, and I can relate to. That he goes, sometimes they would tell us, this huge problem that we've been having forever, and they'd go, we'll try this little thing, and then he says, he was thinking to himself, yeah, right, that's gonna work. And then he agreed to try it and saw that it worked the first time, and then it ticked him off. That's human nature too. We've certainly been there. I call it the duh factor, things that they come in and say for ABA, well, let's try this. And you go, that's too easy. That couldn't possibly work. And then it does work, and you go, well, duh. But when you're overstressed, don't know some of these basic principles, overtired, and your child has been engaging this behavior, sometimes you can't see the forest for the trees, right? And that's why we all need some help in this. So absolutely love hearing the parent side of it, and the mom saying he's a happy kid and he was always a happy kid, and I guess I didn't realize that you can have autism and still be a happy kid. Pulls on the heartstrings. So lots of different things I want to talk with, but I want to work from the back, because I was out last week. My son was on spring break, and there were so many heartbreaking stories about elopement in the news. Oh, I can't even talk about them, you guys. But at least 2 children that I can think of with autism who died last week because they eloped. And I think it's one of those things that it's hard for any of us to talk about. It's hard for us to talk about it within the community, because it just sends a shiver up your spine, and you think, there but for the grace of God go I. And I think it's all too easy for people to say, you know, why wasn't somebody watching that kid? But we in the community know, my goodness, you know, you can be watching them constantly, and a child, you know, can dart and weave and be gone. And that it's impossible to watch a child as much as you need to when they have autism. You know, because you do need to get rest occasionally. So what can we do about elopement? And you saw at the end of that video that they continue to work on elopement with Jack Riley. That it isn't something that, you know, you work on the lesson. It's not one of those things in the category that we were just talking about a moment ago where the challenging behavior and you find the answer and boom, and it's done. Elopement is one of those things that you keep working on, but you have to start. You have to really, really start. And we've seen, and go back and watch the series. We'll give you the YouTube channel that you can watch from the beginning. But they've been working on elopement with Jack, and he's getting better, but he'll cycle in and out of that because of the age that he's at. Look, he is looking at the world and going, look at that thing over there. I want to go toward it. Well, this is not a bad thing in terms of his curiosity and his excitement and his passion to go to that thing, but it's a bad thing in terms of he's not noticing everything else between him and it that could create a problem for him, right? And we see that with elopement with kids, that a lot of times that there is something specific that they want to go to, that whether it's a puppy that they saw at somebody's house down the road, or a pond where they saw ducks before, or a child that they want to play with, or they see a bird in the tree that they want to go to, or they see that toy in the department store that they want to go over to that toy. A lot of times it's the child going to something, right? Although sometimes it's the child escaping away from something. So really important, first of all, to look at elopement and have an idea of what you're looking at. What is the cause? What is the function of this behavior? And we mentioned at the top of the show that you have that antecedent, the behavior, and the consequence. So, you know, what is happening directly before the antecedent, our word for the day? What's happening directly before the elopement is happening? And we were just watching with Jack Riley, and for him, it seems, you know, he's having a pleasant experience there with his dad. It does not seem in any way that he's trying to escape, but it seems like there are things that he's going towards, things that are of interest to him that he wants to go and look at. So they can begin to find ways for him to appropriately ask to go to those things, but in the meantime, they got to start someplace, right? And so what they're starting with is having him, even if he's excited about something and wanting to go toward it, they're having him stop when mom or dad says stop. So that the hope is that they're going to be able to walk down the sidewalk at some point, and they're there by a busy street. They're going to walk down the sidewalk, and that before he gets to a driveway or to the street, that they're going to be able to say stop, that Jack Riley stops on a dime and doesn't go any further, so he's not going to be at risk for being hit by a car. There's so many other aspects of elopement to work on, but this is just one. But again, I'm going to go back to the how to eat the elephant, one bite at a time. We got to work on it one bite at a time. I know sometimes as a parent it just seems so overwhelming. Like, how are we ever going to get there? How are we going to cover? How am I ever going to feel safe? That's certainly how I felt. I thought, I'm never going to be able to walk down a sidewalk with my child and not hold his hand. I felt that. I felt that when he was 2. I felt that when he was 3. I felt like that when he was 4. At 5, people were saying to me, you can walk with him now and not hold his hand, and I still felt it. He's 8 now, and I could walk anywhere with him, and I would know that he's not going to run away from me. I had relatives that were just visiting last week, and we went to Universal Studios, and I was standing with my child, and it was cold, so he was holding my hand, because it's not cool to hold mom's hand anymore. He's 8.5, but it was cold, and so he was holding my hand, and all of a sudden he ran away from me, and I was like, what just happened? He ran 4 feet because there was a little girl who was in a stroller who had dropped her toy, and he gave it back to her, waved to her, and ran right back to me. That's the extent of elopement with my son. And can I tell you, we had to talk about that I said, that was really sweet, but you need to tell me when you're going. And he said, oh, Mom, I would have if I knew that I was going any more away than that. And I said, but I could have been walking the other way. And, so we talked about that. But that's as much elopement as I get now. One bite at a time, one thing at a time. And we see, again, with Jack Riley, he's going to cycle in and he's going to cycle out, but they're going to get it done. And you can see that occasionally he does stop when Dad says stop, but not always yet. We need to get it to 100%, right? So they're going to keep working on it. And how do they do that? They reinforce him every time he actually stops. So they say, yay, and that's wonderful. But then, Dad will move towards the thing that he was going towards so that he still gets access to that thing that he wanted access to, but he's doing it on Dad's terms, not on his own. But, Dad has to be really present and make sure that he's not running into the road, too. We need to be so careful as we're working on these things that it's in a happy and safe environment. But if your child is eloping, please get help today. Please get help today. If you need help and support, ask for a grant from ACT Today. They have grants available for fences and for ABA therapy to help you work on elopement. Please don't be another statistic. It pains me every time I see a child in the news who has died because they eloped and something horrible happened. Can we please get to the point where that isn't happening for our children anymore? And yes, it is a lengthy process working on elopement, but start today. Start today. And it can't be from a place of scolding or punishment, you guys. It has to be from a place of reinforcing. We're teaching the child appropriate skills to ask so that if the child wants to escape something, that they ask and say, I don't want to do this anymore. If they want access to the puppy that's down the street, that they ask appropriately. And remember that there are lots of different ways of asking. It isn't just vocally, that they can point to a picture. And then as soon as they do ask appropriately, that you grant them access to the thing whenever possible. But we have to make it reinforcing for them to listen to us when we say stop. So again, lots of different ways to work on elopement, and we need to start immediately if that's an issue. Okay. I want to talk about some of the other things that we saw in the A word, but we're running out of time here. Really quickly, though, one of the things in particular, did you notice that when he was sitting there and he was making the puzzle and he was putting the puzzle together and he fit the last piece in, and he immediately, you could see the excitement as he was fitting the last piece in, and he immediately got so excited and he started jumping up and down even before the praise came from everybody else. If you recall earlier when I was talking about how when we initially start, we want to put something that is reinforcing to the child with the task. And if you go back and watch the early episodes with Jack Riley doing a puzzle, he didn't think doing a puzzle was any great thing. But if he did the puzzle, he got some sort of reinforcement that was meaningful to him. And they cheered for him. Well, over time, they faded the reinforcement, so it was just cheering. And now we've gotten to the point where, did you see, even before they cheered, he was excited himself that there was a full picture. This is when we are fading that reinforcement properly, because he was happy in and of himself. Now, it was thrilling to him that everybody cheered, but this was a child who initially didn't think it was all that exciting when everybody cheered either. So really exciting to be able to see how we can make something reinforcing to a child over a period of time. Absolutely love that. And then that whole getting somebody's attention appropriately and seeing from the first trial, and we'll see more of that in the future with Jack Riley. I want to also let you know that the episode that we just showed is not the most recent episode. We're about 6 months behind because we watch one episode a week and pick it apart. I like to pick it apart and look at the different elements. So please take a look at the A word on YouTube. Use it as a learning tool because there's so many great ABA tips in it. But I think it's also a wonderful reminder that this is a process and that it's so much easier to see it in somebody else and accept it when you see it in somebody else than when it's in your own home. To say, do we forgive these parents for being human and not knowing what they don't know, right? And it reminds us that we can forgive ourselves too. All right, let's take a break and we'll come back in just a minute with some of your viewer responses to the question of the day. They're pretty awesome. Stick with us.
Skills is a revolutionary web-based program that incorporates comprehensive assessment, curriculum design, progress tracking, and treatment evaluation for children with autism all in one place. Developed by the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. Our approach is based on over 40 years of research on the principles of learning and their application to improving the lives of children with autism. Skills was designed to equip educators of children with autism everything they'll need to get their students on the right track towards recovery. How does Skills work? Created with speed and simplicity in mind, Skills was modeled on an easy 3-step process. Step 1. Start assessment. Step 1 begins with our intelligent assessment system, which consists of a series of questions. This assessment is essential to identifying your child's level of skills compared to their typical peers across all areas of development. This includes assessing social, motor, language, adaptive, play, cognition, executive functions, and academic skills. Every skill has an assigned age which indicates when the skill emerges during typical development. This means that each child is automatically presented only with lessons that are relevant to his or her age. Step 2. Choosing activities. It's now easier than ever to build an individualized treatment plan. In Step 2, you are presented with an individualized pool of activities that are directly linked to your students' assessment results. Each activity represents a specific skill that has been indicated by the assessment as needing to be taught. Activities are categorized by curriculum and then by lesson. There are 3 main types of skills: building blocks, fundamental, and expansion skills. Fundamental skills are necessary for successful everyday functioning. Building blocks are prerequisites to a fundamental skill. Expansion skills are non-essential skills, but may provide further enrichment in certain areas. After reviewing the activities available to you, you can quickly add your chosen activities to the treatment plan by simply checking the box and clicking the button. Step 3. Start treatment. Once you have selected and added the activities you want, you are ready to begin teaching. Skills provides you with all the tools necessary to design and manage an effective curriculum plan, such as printable activity guides that are customizable by the teacher, supplemental teaching aids including printable data sheets, teaching guides, visual aids, worksheets, and tracking forms, detailed IEP goals and benchmarks for each activity, brief and visually appealing video tutorials, a variety of treatment progress and clinical timeline charts, and lots more. And since Skills is completely web-based, everything you need is available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, in one easy-to-access location. Skills users even benefit from unlimited access to a support community where they can ask questions and share ideas with a skills expert. Skills is always with you.
Welcome back to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod. We're webcasting to you live from the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. If you're just tuning in, we've had a name change and we are now Autism Live. We think it suits us better, but we'd like to know what you think. And that's something that we always want to know. We want to know what you think because really we're here to support you and help you to be more effective and more efficient working with your children on the spectrum. And first of all, I want you to know we really mean that. That's not just lip service. We really and truly mean that. So if you tell us what will help you, we're more likely to be more successful. That's just how it works. And we really welcome and cherish your comments and suggestions and questions and even complaints. We're trying to, in fact, we're making some changes based on some of the things that you guys have said. And want to remind you that you can watch us on Blip TV, which is a great opportunity for you to be able to watch us at any time and go back over an episode and rewind and fast forward and all kinds of different things. Because we know we're here 3 hours a day live, but we know that sometimes you don't have 3 hours to devote to this. And believe me, I know that. But we hope that we're providing you information that's helpful to get through the day and to be able to help your child to gain new skills and reduce challenging behavior. And anything else that you need, let us know, because we have access to some people who have some really good things to add to the conversation. We ask you a question every day, and I think we hit a nerve today because lots of viewer responses. I'm not going to have time to read all of them, but the question of the day was, what makes you the angriest about autism? And I know I said this morning, oh, don't even get me started. There are so many things I could think of, but you guys wrote in and said some really amazing things that take my breath away. Somebody wrote in and said how unpredictable it is. Yeah, absolutely. Love this one, that there isn't a shut off button. Most days I can deal, but sometimes I just love to shut it off for a minute or an afternoon. I used to say, can I get an autism vacation? I just want a 5-minute autism vacation. Is it too much to ask for? And apparently it was on some days. Another person wrote it and said that I cannot predict what will happen next. Pins and needles for life. It's tough. It's really, really tough. Another person said the way people treat children with autism, they do not invite them to birthday parties or other social events for children. My son is autistic and is well behaved, is well behaved, better than most normal children, but they continue to leave him out. I just do not get it. And I got to tell you, I feel for you, and I've been there and done that, and some people, you're just not going to change their minds. I got some really good advice from another mom who said, make it so worthwhile. The whole thing with ABA is in order to maintain a behavior, it has to be reinforcing. And this mom said to me, make it so worthwhile for your child to be invited to the party that no one would never not invite your child again. And whether that means making the gift fabulous or showing up and doing something fabulous at the party, or having some side benefit. In the beginning, what I would do is I would bring my camera and I would take pictures of everything at the party, and I would send the pictures to the mom. And that got around that I came and took fabulous pictures, and so my son got invited to more parties. So whatever it is, for people that I knew a little bit more, I learned how to make balloon swords. I know, doesn't this sound pathetic? But I would go to the party and I would make balloon swords, and so that got my son invited to some more parties. And then, of course, you might be thinking, so Shannon, how did you manage this? Because you had a child with autism at this party who loved elopement. Eventually, once we started therapy, I had a therapist come with us to birthday parties so that my son, somebody could be there facilitating conversations. Because you know what? There are just some times when as a mom it doesn't work as well. If I was there and trying to encourage another child to play with my child, the mother would always come over and go, is there a problem? What's going on? He doesn't want to play with him, and da-da-da-da-da. Whereas when it was the therapist, and everybody thought it was my nanny, even though I wasn't trying to push that at all. If anybody asked me, I'm like, oh, my son, therapist, Center for Autism and Related Disorders, they're fabulous, right? But, I wasn't running around screaming it at people. And but everybody just sort of assumed that I had this nanny, and for some reason, when it wasn't the mom, when it was the therapist, they totally loved it because it gave them permission to be in the kitchen with all the other moms, snacking on the crudités and chatting it up, thinking, oh, my nanny was watching their kid. Yeah, I don't understand it either. But that's how my son got invited to more birthday parties, just as a little thing. And it doesn't have to cost you a whole bunch of money to be able to take the pictures. And that, I would make sure that my child was right there and taking the pictures as well. So I'll tell you what they loved the most was when I would take pictures of the birthday cake. Go figure. Okay, another person wrote in and said, no matter how much it's on the news and everywhere else, we still have people who are uneducated about it and are so dumb when it comes to reacting to a child with autism. When we first found out our now 6-year-old had it, my husband's cousin was like, I'm sorry. I'm like, hello, we didn't say he had a deadly disease and was dying. Really ticked me off. It's so hard. And I think, somebody needs to write the book about what everyone else needs to do when you find out that your friend or your sister or your brother or your, whoever has a child with autism. Because it's one of the hardest moments in your life when you have to call people up or explain to somebody that you just found out that your child was diagnosed with autism. You're so vulnerable. You're just like a raw piece of meat, and these people who have no idea what to say. And, I know people said to me, oh, I'm so sorry. And I too wanted to jump down their throat with spikes. I know that they are sorry. I know that they're sorry for everything that you're going through and everything you're about to go through. But we need to tell them what to say. And what I have started saying to people is, your child is so lucky to have you. And it's so good that you now know how you're going to begin to help your child. Because I don't even know at this point what to say to somebody when they're going through something. But I'm always careful not to say I'm sorry, because I know that just rankled me. Okay, another person said too many things to say just one, but that they agree with everything that everybody else says. Another person says, I don't like that it's so hard to find and get the help that they need, both in and out of school. It is hard, but if we band together, and I really encourage that you guys get yourself a local support group and a more global support group, because we can help each other. We shouldn't have to reinvent the wheel. And anytime that I found somebody really good, including the Center for Autism and Related Disorders, it was from another parent who said, oh, you know what, don't mess around with this, go right here. And those are the people that I tended to listen to. Another person says not being in control. Some days it feels like it's running our lives, and it just gets so frustrating, and the stimming. Some days it's background noise. Some days it's like a jackhammer, the constant humming and noise, making that most of the time he isn't even aware that he's doing. Oh yes, I can relate. Another person says the schools are the thing that make them the angriest. I can deal with all 3 kids with autism, but I hate the schools. Time for a new school. There are better schools. I know, sometimes that's not possible. Autistic children are very misunderstood. If people would take the time to get to know them, they would discover all the wonderful things an autistic child has to offer. Amen to that. Another person who said how rude people can be, knowing that they do not understand, and that many choose not to even try to understand or educate themselves. The assumptions that people have that autism is an excuse for parents to permit their children to misbehave. Most of all, I think is what they're saying is, I am the angriest that my little girl is not as happy as she deserves to be. FYI, what makes me happy about her autism, she is the most honest, accepting, and loving person that I know. Thank you for that. Another person said the fact that I may never hear my nephew, say a full sentence. I'm so blessed that he can say a few words, so at least I hope at least I know how his voice sounds. Also, I feel angry about how most people are so uneducated about autism. Some people don't even think it's anything major. I know. It's disheartening. But, we're clearing it out. We're getting all this crap out, saying it all, and then we can move on with our day, right? Another person says, finding a decent placement in the schools that does not hurt disabled children. Absolutely. Another says, not being able to fully communicate. I just wish, and I'm sure he does too, that he could just tell me what he wants or understand what he has to do. Okay, here's one from somebody who actually has Asperger's. The person says, for me, as a person with Asperger's, are the looks and crude comments. I hold down a job, but I get yelled at for having no eye contact or very little. I guess just the looks as well. Okay. Watching my son suffer through meltdowns and knowing I can't just take it away. My heart breaks so much when he is crying and banging his head and biting himself. I can help him ease out of one, but I just can't take it away. Bless your heart. I hope you're getting help, because when it's self-injurious, you got to get some help. We'll talk about that more in just a minute. The fact that the little lady cannot express what she's feeling from sad or having a tummy ache. Yeah. Another person who wrote in and said, I get frustrated when my grandson has a meltdown in a store. Not at him, but those who stare and make faces. Now I know why people put shirts on their children that say things like, this is what autism looks like. We need a better way to educate the public about autism. They can't tell by looking at a child that he or she is autistic. Absolutely. I feel very angry when people are judging me badly when my little son shouts loudly in the supermarket and when they told me I had badly educated them. People need to shut their pie holes. Isn't that true? I know. I just go there, right? People have opinions and they should keep them to themselves. People think they're so helpful and they just aren't. Okay, another person says, it's not so much that the autism itself that makes me angry, but it's the lack of help that we get for it. We get absolutely nothing from the government or insurance, etc. It's absolute bullocks, to be honest. That's what makes me absolutely hopping mad. I hope help is on its way to you. Things are changing. It's not fast enough by anybody's stretch of the imagination, but it's starting to change for some people. Another person says, how misunderstood children with autism are. My son also gets left out from birthday parties and play dates and is told he is weird. Oh, the bullying, that's a whole other issue. When my insurance refuses to pay for services, we're going to do a show about that very soon. Stick with us. What makes me angriest is that they still haven't pinpointed why in this generation we have more and more kids being diagnosed with it or ASD. Another person saying the school system and the ignorance of other people. And that's just on one site and not even all of them. So, and there are more on some of the other sites. Loving that you guys are getting it off your chest and sharing, because that's going to help us to get back into the business of the day, right? You know, the anger is easier than the grief, right? Okay, we'll take a breath. I appreciate your comments, and I appreciate that you're talking to each other. We're going to come back in just a second, so stick with us.
I'm Adele Nadowski, Director and Co-Creator of Skills. CARD e-learning is an online tool that has been developed by the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. CARD e-learning is the training that is delivered to the ABA therapists at CARD to train them on the principles of applied behavior analysis and to equip them with the knowledge they need to essentially deliver the ABA-based techniques during their therapy with the children that they work with. ABA has been proven scientifically to be the most effective intervention for children with autism. At this point, even the Surgeon General has come out with a statement suggesting just that. So we know that this is something that children with autism definitely need if they're going to improve and live the lives that we're hoping that they're going to be able to live. By being able to train people on this one particular method that we know works, and to be able to have all of your staff within your school settings on the same page, it allows you to take more of a multidisciplinary approach, and there's definite consistency going on within the team. It makes sure that every person involved with that child's treatment program, including the speech and language pathologist, the occupational therapist, the teachers, the aides, all of these individuals to be able to be trained so that they can all work together effectively with the child. Parents that are using CARD e-learning can use it either to train themselves, and then after having done that they can implement different techniques with their child in order to teach new skills. But oftentimes parents might also be working either with an ABA provider, with a school, or they may have even hired their own therapist to deliver the intervention techniques. So CARD e-learning can be used either to collaborate with your school. It can also be used to train the therapists that are coming to the home of the parents, or it can also be shared with the ABA provider so that that provider can find out about it and perhaps implement it within their organization and train their staff. You can also do reporting for your organization. So you can actually look and find out which teachers are progressing, what their quiz scores are, and actually we can give you reports as well that will help you to compare the different teachers and their performances. CARD e-learning is really simple to use. You can log on to this as long as you have a computer, that's all you need, and an internet connection. And you can work on it any time of the day, anywhere that you're at. When you log on, you realize that right away. First of all, on the top of the page, there's a navigational tutorial. It's a how to use this page button. Simply by watching that video, it'll all kind of unfold in front of you and it becomes extremely self-explanatory. CARD e-learning has 9 modules and you can basically go through those at your own pace. You're going to be watching videos that are kind of like a storyboard with narration, but in addition to that, there's many different video clips of therapists actually implementing the techniques that are being described within the storyboard that you can also watch. And then of course you're able to pause, you're able to type notes right directly underneath the video that you're watching. You can save your notes, you can review them, and between each module you do take a quiz. And once you pass that quiz, you can go on to the next module. And then after you complete all of them, you have a final exam. And by completing the final exam and passing with a score of 85% or better, you will be given a certificate of completion. Let me show you how easy it is to use CARD e-learning.
Welcome back to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod. We're webcasting to you live from the Center for Autism and Related Disorders headquarters in Tarzana, California. I promised you at the beginning, excuse me, of the show that we were going to be giving you tips on different skills that we want to build in our children. And one of the things that I love to talk about are cognition skills and executive function skills. And you guys all know, and I don't want to pretend otherwise, I'm a huge fan of skills. I think it's really one of the most amazing things that there is, and I'll tell you why. Because as a parent, when my child was diagnosed, I remember thinking, okay, I've got a diagnosis, so I'm going to be able to go and find the help that I want, and I'm going to be able to start something. I've been in this waiting mode, getting the diagnosis. Now I know I'm going to be able to start something. I'm going to be able to help my child. Well, that wasn't the case. It was that hurry up and wait kind of thing because I didn't find exactly what was going to help my child immediately. It took me a couple of months before I discovered that ABA was going to be the thing that not only was going to help my child, but that was scientifically proven that my child was going to make progress. So that took me a little bit to find, and when I did find ABA and I saw what it was doing for other kids, I went, okay, I want to start right now. Right now, right now, right now. We've been waiting. Everybody tells us how important it is to start as early as possible. Why can't I start right now? Because logistics and funding and all these other things that I had to go through and be on the waiting list, yada, yada, yada. And it was so frustrating to me. It was worth the wait, I can tell you. And then when I saw how effective it was with my child, how much progress my child was making, and I felt the gratitude of that, all I could think was there are people all over the world who don't have the benefit of this, and how unfair that is. It just, I got to tell you, that kept me awake as many nights as not knowing what to help my own child kept me awake, because I just kept thinking about that mom in Minnesota who didn't have access to this, and that mom in India who didn't have access to this, and those kids. And it became like this mantra in my head about there's a lost generation of kids who don't have the benefit of this. And it just drove me bananas. And then And it was something I was constantly talking to anybody that I could about. What are we going to do about this? What are we going to do about this? We have to create an army of therapists. We have to populate the world with therapists that can go around and be able to teach parents this and to be able to give this important stuff to kids. And as many of you know, I also host a radio show, and I was talking about that endlessly on my radio show. And even though my child was receiving therapy from the Center for Autism and Related Disorders, I had never actually met Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh. I had heard stories about her, and she was sort of this legendary shadowy figure to me, but I had never actually met her. And she invited me, I guess because of the radio show, to come and see an unveiling of Skills. So I got to be one of the first groups of outside people who got to see Skills. And I literally, when I tell you guys that I saw it, and I was so moved that I didn't want to cry because I was at this meeting with a lot of really important people, but I wanted to cry. Inside, I started to cry, and I literally shook. I started to shake, and I shook for 2 hours after the meeting. I called my husband. I drove away. I drove down the street, and I pulled into a parking lot, and I called my husband, and I said, I'm shaking right now. I just have seen the answer. I have seen the answer so that nobody has to wait anymore. And that was CARDI Learning and Skills. So when I tell you guys that I'm a huge fan, I mean it. And I'm a Skills user. My son has graduated from his program at CARD, and we use Skills at home now. So I just want you to know that unabashedly, I'm a huge fan. Because if you're sitting there waiting, you don't have to be. And that's the long and the short of it. But within Skills, they have several different curriculums of different things to work on, and there are lots of autism organizations that are working on different skills with kids, and I don't want to belittle that at all. But I will tell you two of the things that are unique to Skills that you're not going to find anyplace else are working on the cognitive skills and working on the executive function skills. And this, you guys, is amazing because for the longest time, I guess in the ABA field, people, they wanted to work on the behaviors, but there was this whole thing attached to what they referred to as going inside, like the thought process, that people were saying, we're not sure if you can work on that, or they just weren't as interested in it, I don't know. But in any case, at the Center for Autism and Related Disorders, they were interested in it. And these are lessons that have been worked on with kids for a very long period of time. They've been in business over 20 years. And they do research, and I saw these lessons with my own child, and I've seen them now with other children, and it's so exciting. It's so exciting. It's taking the basic principles of ABA, which, principle number one that we've talked about and we continue to talk about, in order for any behavior to be maintained, it has to be reinforcing. So reinforcing, different patterns of thought and reinforcing the child for thinking and behaving according to that thinking in a certain way and strengthening those skills. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit about cognition today and how we can do that, and taking one series, and if you subscribe to Skills, you'll see that you do an assessment and you see what's appropriate for your child. And every child is going to be different, right? Because every child needs different elements of a skill to be able to do something. But one particular progression for one particular child, so that you can sort of see, in getting a child to understand desires. That's one whole aspect of the cognition curriculum. Not going to be appropriate for every single child. There might be a child who already is great at expressing their own desires. But not only do the lessons teach the child to identify and be able to state their own desires, and remember that stating your desires doesn't necessarily have to be a vocal response. So we can work on this with kids who are really, really little, or kids who do not yet have vocal speech, but getting them to express their desires. One of the parents was just saying on what makes you the angriest about autism, that my child doesn't have a way of conveying to me what they want, right? So we're going to start really early with any child and be able to have them express what it is that they want. want. And as soon as a child begins to understand, and you saw in the A word that, Jessica tempts the child with something, and we see if the child wants it. We can do a preference assessment and put 3 things out in front of a child and see if the child picks one of them. You can do that with a baby, right? And it may be that the child doesn't pick any of them, and so you think to yourself, oh, the child doesn't have a preference, but it may be that none of those 3 things is exciting, so you put 3 more things there until you see the thing that the child gravitates towards. And most of our kids have at least one thing. In fact, that's part of our problem, is that sometimes it is only just one thing that they perseverate on, that they're really interested in. For my son, when he was about to turn 3, it was the vacuum cleaner, right? I couldn't get him to play with a toy. You could roll in a $3,000 toy and my son wouldn't even look at it. But if you pulled out the vacuum cleaner, he'd be playing with the hose, But what we could start with was him asking what did he want to play with, and being able to point to a picture of a vacuum cleaner, or point to the actual vacuum cleaner, and then eventually being able to say vacuum cleaner. Now, we were also working on making other toys reinforcing for him, but having the child be able to express what it is that they want also helps with elopement, right? We talked about that if a child is running away, if they're running to the puppy, instead we want to be able to teach them to be able to in some way state, I want the puppy, whether it's sign or an icon, like pecks or something like that. But we start with having them express their own desires. What do you want? You see Jessica asking Jack Riley that all the time in therapy. What do you want? And then having him in some way convey what he wants. Well, then the next step in that is then asking in different circumstances, and you can contrive the circumstance or capture a real life circumstance or watch it on a video, and say to the child, what do you think mommy wants? What do you think daddy wants? Or what do you think the character on the phone in the little video wants? So we're teaching the child that it's reinforcing to think in these terms, because when we do establish, so say if the dog is there and the dog is barking and the child is holding a biscuit, and you say to the child, what does the dog want? The child is not necessarily going to get it the first time. We might prompt them and say, do you think the dog wants the biscuit? But what we're helping to do is helping the child to see how reinforcing it is to see things from different angles, to think of it in terms of what they want and what somebody else wants. And the more examples that we give to see that what you want isn't necessarily what the dog wants, and what you want is not necessarily what mom wants, we're going to get into that perspective taking, right? So in all of the cognition lessons and skills, they teach things first from the child's point of view, but then from other people's point of view, and not just one person's point of view, many different people's points of view, because we want the child to generalize that everyone has desires, not just the people that we've taught. Everyone has desires, so that 3 years from now, when they're in the grocery store and there's a child 2 carts over that's doing something, that they will realize, and they've never been taught that child has their own desires, but they begin to realize that child does have their own desires, and are thinking for themselves. So then, from there of expressing your own desires, we get into wishes and hopes, that things that the child wants, but that they can't necessarily have right now. Think of how that would help with elopement. To be able, so that, initially if the child says, I want to see the puppy that's 2 doors down, we're going to take them, right? Because that's what we need to do to begin to work on elopement. But at some point, we need to begin to understand this concept of there are things that I want that I can't have right now, but I'm wishing and I'm hoping, and that maybe I'll be able to get it, right? That's going to help with executive function skills, because later on we're going to work on how do you get that. But in the beginning, we have to introduce this concept of I'm wishing and I'm hoping, and we're going to start with the child with that, but then we're going to bring it to other people. What do you think that mommy's wishing for? That, and we might take, mom into a grocery store and have her looking at the ice cream and have somebody say, what do you think mom's wishing for? And for the child to notice that mom is looking at the ice cream. And at first, child's not going to get it, right? But the other person is going to look and say, you know, look, mom's looking at the ice cream. Do you think she wants it? Yeah, mom's wishing for the ice cream, right? And if you're the mom or the dad and you're doing it, then you do it with a video. You could do it with a dog. You know, look at the dog. What's the dog wishing for? Oh, the dog's wishing she could go outside, right? So starting with self and then moving it to others, then working on disguised mands. We've talked about manding before. Manding is when you request something. So sometimes people are asking for something, but it's kind of disguised. They don't always tell us what it is that they want, right? So, this is a really fun thing to play with kids, and this is going to be, in the progression, it's a much older skill, right? Not necessarily age older, but after you've got all these other skills, then you can start to work on, this is a really great thing to work on kids that have Asperger's, because being able to understand the body language, that somebody didn't really ask for something, but their body language suggested that they might want it. Think about how helpful this would be in dating, right? And how helpful this is in all different kinds of circumstances. So for the child to realize that sometimes they can ask for something and not ask for it vocally, but that their body language, or that sometimes they'll ask for something vocally, but in a very roundabout kind of way. You know that person who says, you know, you're not getting up, are you? Right? Do you want me to get up? We have people in the world who deal that way, and if we have kids who only understand language in a very flexible way, black and white way, you know, a child with Asperger's is going to say, no, I'm not getting up, and they're going to go back to doing what they're doing and miss that cue of, well, I was kind of hoping you would get up because I want you to go get something for me. So we work on disguised mands, and the kids find this really exciting. It's like a game that, you know, how can you request something from somebody without requesting it? It's really very fun. But then also we want them to understand, again, other people's disguised mands. And then, of course, there's a whole series of lessons on changing your mind, that it's okay to change your mind, and why you might change your mind and what it is to change your mind, which opens us up to understanding that other people are going to change their minds too. And that it's okay when people change their mind. That's going to help with flexibility, and it's really going to help in social skills. So really exciting lessons. Those are all in the cognition curriculum of skills. And we can do this. There are teaching tips that come with every lesson, and you can see the progression. And if it seems pie in the sky and you're thinking to yourself, my child will never be able to do that, I got to tell you that, you know, while that might be true, and I don't know your individual child, a lot of children can be taught these things and make tremendous progress. And if nothing else, your child can learn how to recognize their own desires. And how wonderful would that be for your child to be able to clearly tell you what it is they want? That can happen. So definitely check out skills. All right, we got to take a break, and when we come back, I think we're talking about a myth of the day. Maybe not. Actually, when we come back, we're running out of time here. When we come back, I believe we're going to have Tom Hibben, who is the #1 blogger, as quoted by Babbel yesterday. So stick with us. We're going to be back in just a minute. We're here today with Sarah Cho, who is the managing supervisor of the CARD Fresno office, and it's a special treat for us to have her with us today. Yeah. And we're going to be asking her to talk to us about working with children who are nonverbal. So when a child is not speaking, are we saying that they're non-vocal or non-verbal?
The correct terminology is non-vocal.
Okay.
Because when we're saying vocal, vocal means sound. So sound is being emitted.
Okay.
So verbal means that the child is able to communicate to another person that they need something, they have desires, they have wants, and a verbal response might be handing a picture.
Okay.
It might also be a sign. Might also be pressing a button to ask for something.
Okay.
Those would all be considered verbal behavior. But if they don't have speech, we might say that they're non-vocal. So imagine then if you have a child who's not developing speech typically, they have no way to tell their parent what they need, you're going to see frustration levels increase. And if I don't have a way to appropriately get my point across, I'm going to start developing some really bad excessive behaviors to communicate. So that's when we start to see the noncompliance, the tantrums, the aggression, even self-injurious behaviors emerge. We're going to use really short and concise and clear speech. Pair it with a gesture, and then when the child starts responding, immediately praise, immediately give a reward. So then that way the child is starting to understand, I got it. I'm understanding what she's wanting me to do. At the same time as working on receptive instructions, we do need to teach the child also a way for them to communicate too. So we're going to start working on very basic requesting behavior. So they're able to request for things. And so the two kind of go hand in hand.
If there are no sounds, then maybe we start with signs.
You could start with signs, or you could start with an icon. As a parent, you're going to know your kid best in the sense that you're going to know kind of what they like. If you have a kiddo who likes to look at pictures, who likes to look at books, maybe an icon is going to be something that would be preferred, and they would get really good at giving it. If you have a child who is, you're like, wow, they have really great fine motor. Maybe they can already string beads. Maybe they can do a shape sorter. The ability to manipulate their hands and their fingers is pretty solid. Maybe you might want to work on some very basic signs.
Okay, so taking whatever the strength is and running with that.
Absolutely. So let's say that you do an icon or you do a sign. Both of those forms of communication have been linked to development of expressive speech. So, if that's something that we're starting with today because we need to get through today, that doesn't mean that that's what we're going to end up doing tomorrow.
Welcome back to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod. We're webcasting to you live from the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. And as promised, we have a very special guest. You may have seen on Babbel.com yesterday that they came out with the top 30 autism blogs for the year. And number one, as I mentioned earlier, was Adventures in Asperger's. And we have the author of that blog, Tom Hibben, who is Skyping in with us live. He is on location at a photography shoot. Tom, thank you so much for Skyping in with us for a few minutes.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity.
Well, and congratulations. Is this really exciting for you?
It is super exciting. It was a huge shock last year and even a bigger shock this year. So.
Well, I didn't realize that you were number one last year, too. I had no idea. So congratulations on both fronts. And can I say how handsome you look today?
Thank you. Thank you. We're photographing a fashion show, so I figured blue jeans and a shirt probably wouldn't do today, so I had to throw on the tie.
You're looking very dapper. So how did you find out that you were number one this year?
Sunday Stillwell posted from Adventures in Extreme Parenthood, posted it up, and a link, and along with my name, and otherwise I wouldn't have known. We didn't get an email ahead of time, but Babbel since sent me the little graphic and everything. So, but yeah, I've as usual, leave it. Sunday keeps me in check as far as blogging goes. So.
Well, and Sunday's going to be with us in just a few minutes because she's the number 2 blog this year, and so she's going to be Skyping in with us in just a few minutes. So we'll talk to her. But Tom, why do you think that you're the number 1 blog? What do you think you're doing right?
Oh man, I don't know. I don't know. I try to just put it out there and not I have a lot of other blogs that I really like, but especially when I started my blog, I didn't find any that were just like, 1, the dad's perspective, and 2, just good, bad, ugly, whatever. There's just a handful of us out there that that have no couth or filter, I guess.
No couth or filter. Well, I gotta say, I definitely think that you're keeping it real, and I think that that's a wonderful thing. I think that the dad's perspective is so refreshing. I also said when we had you on the show before, I think that your photos add a lot to your blog too. They're just absolutely beautiful. But of course, you guys are photographers. Let's plug your photography business while we're here.
No, that's right. It's hibbenphotography.com. It's me and my wife. I feel like I found something I'm really good at, but she's so much better than I am. So she carries me. She's inside doing the pictures right now while I'm talking to you. So
and we're not going to keep you very long at all.
I was really appreciative of the article that they wrote under our caption and under our place on Babbel, which spoke about our pictures as well, and so that was really nice. I appreciated that. That was cool.
Absolutely, and I think it just goes to show that, and as you said, you talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly, that it doesn't all have to be hearts, flowers, and roses. You keep it real, but how wonderful that you have such a wonderful place to showcase this new talent that you found, because when your child was diagnosed on the autism spectrum, were you taking photographs then?
Yes, yeah.
Oh, you were already?
I'm sorry?
I didn't realize that. So you were taking photographs back then?
Yeah, we started the photography before that, and we had, about the time of his diagnosis was about the time that we went full-time with it and really ran with it. Mm-hmm. So it helped us, tailor our work schedules to our life. So,
but you were doing a different job before that, correct? And your schedule had to change a little bit?
Right. Before that it was full-time ambulance stations all the time. So after that, we kind of had to change our life to accommodate, the changes we needed to make for him. So
yeah, but there's something about the kismet of that you're now doing this thing that you're really, really passionate about, and that people are noticing. That I really appreciate, because I think sometimes it doesn't, while there is the whole aspect of autism that's hard and difficult, in some ways, sometimes there are little gifts along the way. And I hope that is a little gift for your family, that you're getting to do this photography in a way that you weren't able to do before.
Really, and the photography, really, people connect so much more with pictures, or, with pictures, and it's like when it's so text heavy and you just read through and you don't really get an adequate, grasp on things. So whether the house is dirty or whether his pants are on backwards, we're going to shoot photos either way. So.
Well, Tom, I think your sense of humor too is the thing. And the fact that you're such a good dad.
Well, I appreciate it.
No, I mean, it's so evident.
Say so all the time, I'm sure.
Oh, well, that's equally a sign of being a good dad. If they think that you're doing a good job all the time, then clearly you're not, right?
That's right.
But no, I think your sense of humor and clearly you're a good dad. Clearly you care about your kids and you care about your wife and you say nice things about your wife, which that always gives you good points from the women. Well, Tom, we congratulate you so much, and we hope that we'll have you back on the show many more times. But we want to get you back inside helping your wife doing the photography. But congratulations. How did you guys celebrate?
We actually haven't yet, so I'm hoping tonight after this fashion show is over, maybe we can just stay all dappered up and she can stay all dressed up, and maybe Grandma will keep watching the kids for just a few minutes while we sneak out to dinner and kind of celebrate. So
I hope that happens for you. I hope Grandma's decks are clear and that she can take that on for you. We'll send
Thank you.
We'll send that hope out to you. Well, congratulate your wife too, because I know that she's a part of everything that you do, and give your kids a hug for us, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Tom. Congratulations, and thank you for all the wonderful writing and photography that you feature on your blog.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
So again, his blog, Adventures in Asperger's, A Dad's Point of View. And I think one of the things that I really enjoy about it is that it isn't always about autism per se. That he's talking about his real life, his day-to-day, and as he said, the good, the bad, and the ugly, keeping it real. So that's Tom Hibben. Again, his blog is Adventures in Asperger's, the #1 rated autism Autism blog by Babbel. We're going to take a little bit of a break, and in just a little while, we're going to have Sunday Stillwell, who's the #2 blog. We've had her on the show before, Adventures in Extreme Parenthood. So stick with us. We're going to be back in just a minute.
Now, there's a new study tonight that suggests autism cases are on the rise, in fact, rising sharply. While no one can still tell us what causes autism, researchers were able to determine that the number of confirmed cases is way up. NBC's Brian Moore explains now from Washington.
Colleen, one advocate calls this a national epidemic in need of a national plan.
Bubble. Bubble, boo, boo.
An ongoing study of 14 areas across the United States shows a troubling spike in autism cases.
1 in 88 children has been identified with autism.
For men, yes. But experts acknowledge this increase might simply be explained by better diagnosis.
What we don't know that we should be alarmed by yet is that this is truly a change in the number of children who are developing autism, or whether we're recognizing it better.
The study by the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention shows autism cases jumped 23% from 2006 to 2008 and spiked 78% when compared to 2002. The 2008 numbers show autism spectrum disorders are 5 times more common in boys than girls, and the largest increase among Hispanic and African American children. Older parents and premature births are suspected factors, but the cause remains a mystery.
The prevailing scientific idea is that it's something that affects the brain development predominantly in utero. So in other words, it's either genetic or it's some environmental factor affecting in utero.
The study shows the average age of diagnosis is down to 4 years old, but experts say that is not good enough. They're hoping to get children diagnosed by 18 months to give them a head start on treatment. The 2010 numbers are being collected right now, but results won't be available for at least 2 years. In Washington, I'm Brian Moore, NBC News. Colleen, back to you.
Brian, thank you. Dr. Doreen Grand-Puchet is the founder and the executive director of the Center for Autism and Related Disorders, and she's here with us in studio tonight. When you saw these numbers, heard about them, were you surprised at all?
Well, I mean, I practice, and I've been practicing for a very long time, so I'm not surprised. I'm saddened by it, but I do see the increase happening. I see the prevalence raise all the time.
Were they able to pinpoint regions or areas? I mean, for instance, is autism more prevalent in the north or south? Is it more prevalent in any particular state?
Yes, actually, this latest study from the CDC, they looked at 14 states. And it's interesting because there's a great amount of variation in the prevalence in these states. So, for instance, Alabama, I think, is one of the states had a very low number, versus New Jersey had a very high number. So, you know, it's variable. California, for instance, has increased significantly over the last decade.
Is there any reason at all given for that? I mean, is it an environmental? Is it that the population is growing here? I mean, how do they break it down?
Right. So the two main areas that people think, one is, of course, it could be better detection. That one I have a hard time with because the diagnostic criteria actually haven't changed since 1994. So, but perhaps, of course, people are much more familiar, pediatricians are being trained more on this issue, so yes, I guess a percentage would have to do with better detection, better diagnosis.
But the numbers for little boys, for young boys, those are almost astronomical now.
That's right, 1 in 54, it's unbelievable. So yeah, the other concept could be environmental factors, you know, and really, Colleen, the more important thing is, if it is environmental, we should really be looking and seeing what are the toxins that are causing this. And either way, we should really be focusing on treatment and how can we help these kids.
Is there any rationale or any reason why it affects young boys more than it does little girls?
Well, sure, and there is some research looking at the effects of testosterone on the whole thing, but you know, we know very little about what causes autism. And it is such a wide spectrum that, you know, the possibility exists that one thing may cause it in certain children and there may be other causes for other children.
How does it break down in terms of ethnicity now? Are there certain ethnic groups that are more affected now than perhaps weren't 10, 20 years ago?
They're looking at that data within the scope of this research. I don't think that in contrast to many years ago there's been drastic changes, but for instance, when you look at one of the things with autism is the boy-to-girl ratio, and it has always been 4-to-1. And as they're looking at it now, in some states it's as high as 7 boys to 1 girl. So that component is becoming pretty clear now.
If parents have a newborn young baby at home, someone under the age of a year, and they're looking to find out if in fact they fall within the parameters here, and they don't have access to a pediatrician at this point, what would you advise? I mean, what are the warning signs for autism?
Right. So there are some sort of red flags that you should be looking for in very young children. One is eye contact. That's a very early one. If you, let's say, try to get your child's attention, a child doesn't really give you eye contact, or you call your child's name, let's say it's a child over 1 and the child doesn't respond to that. If the child is not pointing to objects, because that's one of the first ways we communicate. You know, and there are, of course, most parents who come to me for diagnosis usually do when the child's not developing language around age 1. And unfortunately, usually they're told just to go back home and wait another 6 months. And the earlier you can start treatment for the child, the less the problems are, essentially.
And how successful is that treatment? I mean, because if a parent gets a diagnosis of autism, there's such a wide range here. They have no idea what to expect.
Absolutely. So, you know, the research shows that if you do behavioral intervention, or ABA, which is what we do at CARD, you have about a 47% chance of actually mainstreaming your child, having the child join regular education around the age, like 1st grade or so, and learn all the skills that they haven't learned. So there is a good portion of autism that you can turn around. But that involves very intensive behavioral intervention, and up to this point it's been out of reach for parents because it's extremely expensive. I mean, we're talking 40 hours or so of one-to-one therapy with the child for about 3 years. And who can afford that? I mean, that's extremely difficult.
Is that covered by insurance at all?
Now, yes, California, and this is thanks to Senator Darrell Steinberg here, we just got the California mandate, which is Senate Bill 946. It just passed. We will have coverage as of July, and a lot of the insurance carriers are actually joining now and even covering it now. And we are the 29th state, by the way, that now has coverage.
That does this. We talk about that wide spectrum of autism. What people don't realize is that some people with autism go on to be very, very successful.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And especially when you look at Asperger's, which is sort of the children on the higher end of the autism spectrum. I mean, these children are absolutely brilliant. They're amazing. I just saw one of our children in South Africa. We have clinics everywhere. And this little boy, he has memorized on his free time the periodic table of elements, and I mean things like he can multiply multiple digits in his head. I mean, some of the kids are unbelievably brilliant.
You see this firsthand. When do you see us ever finding a root cause for this and perhaps stemming the tide of this increase every year?
Yeah, it's going to be very difficult. For 2 reasons. One is that it's a very wide spectrum, and I think that there might be multiple causes. The second thing is that when we say environmental causes, for instance, there's so many types of things going on in our environments. You know, should we be focusing on toxins in our food, exposure to plastics? You know, is it really influenced by the vaccination schedule? Like, there's so many different types of things in our environment.
And is it something children develop after they're born? Does it happen in utero?
Exactly, and of course, because the diagnosis happens after birth, it's very hard to tell when the effect is actually taking place. I find that if you have children who have the symptoms earlier, so closer to birth, then they end up having more of a severe deficit than if you start to look at some symptoms developing around 3, for instance.
Okay. Doctor, thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
Certainly
Thank you very
appreciate
much.
you breaking it down for us.
Thank you.
Welcome back to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod. We are webcasting to you live from the Center for Autism and Related Disorders, and I promised you that we were going to also be talking with Sunday Stillwell, and she is responsible for the blog Adventures in Extreme Parenthood. So, Sunday, are you there?
I'm here.
And congratulations. We were just talking to Tom Hibben, but you are also in the top 30 Babbel blogs this year for blogs about autism. And you were just sharing with me during the break that it's in alphabetical order. I was saying that you guys were number one and number two. And but you guys should be one and two.
Sorry, Tom.
No. But clearly, I think that's just a coincidence. You guys should be 1 and 2 anyway. But so, were you on the list also last year, or is this your first year?
I was. No, I was on the list also last year, as was Tom.
Yes.
That's actually how I found Tom's blog.
Oh, very good, very good.
Yeah.
And so, how did you find out this year that you were on the list?
Actually, they emailed me and let me know that they were going to be coming out with their list again this year. And I had a feeling that if they were going to give me a heads up that it was coming, that chances are probably it's because I was going to be picked again. And so, but actually the first time I saw it was when it went live and people started tweeting it out on Twitter. And so I went, and sure enough, there was my name. And like 50 minutes later, I got the email from them saying, "Hey, we included you in our top 30 list," and it was great. It's really I love the Babbel list because it's not a popularity contest.
Right.
They pick who they like.
Exactly. Well, and Tom didn't know, and they didn't email him. He found out because you put it out there, and so he found out from you. So he says you're so connected that he finds everything out from you. So very complimentary.
Well, by so connected, that means I'm so hooked into my computer all day.
You know what, though? You're doing a great service to everybody. And for those people who didn't watch when you were on our show before, but they probably are familiar with their blog, if for no other reason than the Ryan Gosling Special Needs series. But for somebody who's brand new, just tuning in and doesn't know what that is, tell us a little bit about Ryan Gosling for Special Needs Moms.
It started out as pictures of Ryan Gosling, press pictures from movies and TV spots. And people would put funny sayings of things that Ryan Gosling, they wished that he was saying to them. At first it was just like, "Hey girl, sorry my shirt fell off." And it's a picture of him like not wearing a shirt.
Love it.
Then people started customizing it. So I made one for special needs moms.
And it was hilarious Sunday. It was absolutely hilarious. It made I had had a really bad day and a really bad week, and it was on a Friday, and I saw it, and it made my entire week. I showed it to my husband. The two of us laughed at each progressive one. They got funnier and funnier. And it's blossomed into this whole thing now, right? Tell us what's going on now.
It's actually a Friday link up now where there is usually between 25 to 35 special needs bloggers that will join in. I will pick one picture on Wednesday, and then they add their own words to the picture, and then they link up on my blog on Friday with what they want Ryan to say. My favorite part is I actually have 2 special needs dads who join in.
Yay.
Tom is one of them.
Yes.
And it is, honestly, theirs are probably in my top 3 favorites every week because they are so funny.
Well, I love it because you've made it so interactive. I mean, it would have been very easy for you to just have held on to it and made it your thing, but that's not in your nature, and you made it so that everybody could participate, which just heightens the fun Sunday. It's just absolutely, so people can tune in on Friday and see what everybody is saying, and that's a wonderful thing. But it's not the only thing that you blog about. What else do you blog about?
Most of the things I blog about have to do with autism, since, that's what, I'm a parent of 2 kids on the severe end of the spectrum. But I also like to blog just about funny things that happen. This weekend I didn't have the boys, and they were with their dad, and unfortunately I was sick. And so yesterday I actually blogged and said, "Thanks, my Easter blue. How about yours?" I mean, it was bad. I was really sick, and it was a horrible weekend. And so I was just like, I'm just going to have a mind dump on my computer of, I really, your Easter couldn't be as bad as mine, because here's what I went through.
Sunday, I can't wait to read this, and I haven't had a second to read it because I also was sick on Easter. I spent the whole day in the emergency room. I was that sick. So I wonder if you and I had the exact same thing.
You had it worse than me then. I wasn't in the emergency room, but I was praying to the porcelain god. Let's just put it that way.
I completely understand.
Well,
I completely understand. I was calling Ralph on the big white phone too. It was not my idea of Easter. It was not. But
bad.
Yes, I completely. We apparently long distance on opposite coasts had the exact same thing. It was not what I had planned.
Yeah.
But no, not well. I can't wait to read this blog because I'm sure I'm going to relate big time. But
sure.
So we asked Tom. We have to ask you. How did you or how are you going to celebrate being on the Babel list?
Wow. I'm thinking that Ryan Gosling needs to come take me out for a steak dinner.
I'm all about that.
That's just my opinion.
I can't believe he hasn't contacted you yet.
Oh, well, so I keep having people tell me that I should try to figure out who his promotions person, or what's the word I'm looking for here.
Well, his agent or his PR person.
Right. And, send it on to her or him and say, hey, maybe Ryan would like to, give a shout out for, parents raising kids with special needs.
Absolutely. Since he's such an icon.
Steak dinner. I'm happy either way.
I love it. I love it. Well, we're going to put that out there. Ryan Gosling should, in fact, buy you a steak dinner. Are you feeling well enough to have a steak dinner yet?
I am. Actually, just today, I actually had a normal lunch, so I'm feeling pretty good.
I'm still on rice cakes and bananas, and a little bit of yogurt. But I'm glad that you're feeling better, because maybe that means that I'm going to be that much better by tomorrow. Well, Sunday, we love your blog. We love you. I just think that you are so funny. I was saying I asked Tom why he thinks that he made the list. Why do you think you made the list?
I think I make the list because I do try to bring humor to everything. And you get a lot more bees with honey than you do with vinegar.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of vinegar blogs out there of all sorts. And I really try to bring the funny and make people laugh.
I agree, but I think you got a really good mix, though, because you don't try to make it seem like it's all wonderful and smooth sailing either.
No. It's not. I can't stand the blogs that make it sound like autism is a tragedy and it's the end of your life as a parent, because there's a lot of those out there.
Yeah.
And I also am not going to be Pollyanna and say, I like it when my kids fecal smear,
Right.
because I don't.
Right. Exactly. And because who would?
Right.
Yes.
I'm not going to whistle while I work as I clean it up, but I have to laugh about it. I have to laugh about it.
Well, I really appreciate that, and I think so many other parents do too. So I salute you, and I'm so glad that Babel got it right, and that they put you and Tom as 1 and 2, because that's where you guys belong. I want to thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule today to be with us, and I hope you'll come back with us on more occasions, because we love checking in with you.
Definitely.
Thank you, Sunday, and congratulations.
Thank you very much.
And we'll see about that steak dinner with Ryan. We'll try from our end, since we're here in LA. We'll see what buttons we can push. All right.
Right.
All right. Take care, Sunday.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Again, that's Sunday Stillwell. Her blog, Adventures in Extreme Parenthood. What a wonderful, very funny young woman, keeping it real. And I love one of her blogs is about, you may be a special needs parent if poop is in your blog frequent words, your keywords. So, you got to have a sense of humor, right? Absolutely love that. So you can check out those 2 blogs, Adventures in Asperger's and Adventures in Extreme Parenthood. Wonderful, wonderful blogs. And if you're a blogger and you would like to be on the show, send us an email, give us a call, Skype us, whatever, because we'd like to talk to you as well. We're going to take a break and be back in just a few minutes.
Here I stand, a man, someone who has overcome struggles, Someone who has endured perceptions of what others thought of him, thinking he was stupid because he was autistic, or simply believing him to be nothing because he was different to them in their minds. But I stood my ground. I just wanted to say to the organization in general, alongside helping me to improve communicatively and socially, the other greatest gifts you gave me were the value of discipline and a good work ethic. To quote Anthony Kiedis, "To celebrate you is greater now that I can." You helped me to realize that the harder you work, the likelier you are to achieve success. Having had to work very, very hard to recover from autism, this discipline has continued to serve me well. I also realized that you taught me a lot about and instilled within me a quality of having compassion and sympathy for other people. That you will be concerned more with the needs and wishes of others than with your own is something that I'm awe of and I constantly strive to be. And in closing, the only way I can sum up all of you is love. Everything you do to help families in need, you do out of the sheer love of wanting to make a positive difference in people's lives. And as I stand here before you as a mature adult, I have to say that I'm extremely grateful for your unwavering loving commitments to helping others and me recover from potential life roadblocks and become active and contributing members of society. While I can't overcome obstacles without a will, I cannot have a will without the love of those supporting me. And without love, I am nothing. Thanks again so very much for your love, everything that you've done and continue to do. Please give my best wishes to your families, everybody else with cardio isn't here, and especially all of your clients and their kids. I'm confident that they too will be able to overcome, and I know that they'll be successful with what they do as long as they continue to put their minds, hearts, passions, and best efforts into it. Enough said.
Welcome back to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod, and we're going to do the myth of the day. And I like to talk about autism myths and ABA myths because it just seems like they're so prevalent. And our question of the day today was, what makes you the angriest? And a lot of you have written in and said how angry you are at misconceptions and how people are uneducated. And I keep saying it's like twigs on a fire, that eventually we're going to get a bonfire going. If we say it enough and say it often enough, people are going to start to hear and listen, right? So I like to take apart a myth at a time and shed a little light on it. And so we refer to this as myth number 10. And it is that the myth is that there's no such thing as recovery from autism. And I'm happy to report that that is a myth. But I want to clarify exactly what I mean by that. There is the possibility of recovery from autism. That's absolutely possible. You just saw Nick Yates in the clip that we ran before this, and he recovered from autism. And he's not the only one by any stretch of the imagination. What do I mean when I say recovery? Well, I would encourage you that there's a place on the Center for Autism and Related Disorders where they talk specifically, in fact, Dr. Adele Nadowski gives a wonderful video explanation of CARD's position on recovery. And my position on it is very similar to theirs, but as a parent, it's, just ever so, with a child that's moving towards recovery, I guess I have my own little flair for it. But the Center for Autism and Related Disorders says that in order to be considered recovered from autism, you need to be looked at by independent third party who does testing and does not find autism as a part of your diagnosis. That somebody looks at you and they do not say that you have autism, that is one aspect of it, but that you also need to be in completely included, typical developing classroom and getting a C or better, so you're passing your classes, and that you need no extra support to get through your life and be functioning with the rest of your life. So that those three things together, at that point, you don't qualify for the autism diagnosis according to an expert. You're not needing any extra supports, and you are doing fine in school without any extra supports. And a lot of people like to think of recovery. They don't like the word recovery, and so they like to say virtually indistinguishable from your peers. Okay. I don't know why there is this stigma attached to the word recovery, to the point where you need to say virtually indistinguishable from your peers. But if that's something that makes you more comfortable, okay. For me as a parent, I like to add in that, because what I want for my child, we can talk about recovery, we can talk virtually indistinguishable from peers, but what I want for my child is for him not to be held back from the things that he wants to do in any substantive way. And I mean all the things that he wants to do, like make a friend, like be able to go up to a child in a playground and be able to introduce himself and start to play with a child and get along with a child, like get through his day and solve the problems that he needs to solve, like go to college and live in the dorm and be a happy individual, like become the rocket scientist that he wants to be able to do, that I don't want for him to be held back in any way. So that's part of it for me as well. And I want you to know that on my journey through autism, I've had the great opportunity to meet many young people and adults who have been deemed recovered, and they're amazing. They're just amazing. And I got to tell you that I feel bad for them sometimes because a lot of kids just don't let the world know who they are. And I can completely understand why, because the minute that the young people who do come out and say, yes, as a child, I had autism, here's my videos of when I was a child, here's what I did, and here's how I am now, I certainly am one of the people who looks at them and because I want to see everything about them. They just are amazing to me. They're so beautiful to me because I'm looking at them and going, okay, my child was once, where you are, and this is a possibility, really. Very exciting to me. And I know that it's probably a great deal of pressure for them. So we can all understand why more and more of these kids don't come forward. A lot of them are college students where their peers have no idea that they ever had an autism spectrum diagnosis. Some of them are out professionals working in the world, and they're just not telling people because there's no need to. But there are a select group of young people who have come forward and said, yep, that was me, and that do take the opportunity to speak about it. And that's a wonderful thing too. But I want you to know that the fact that there aren't thousands of them doesn't mean that there aren't thousands of them out there. They like to be private about that part of their lives because when the few who have come forward, it creates a lot of attention. And a lot of it's positive, but it's still, we've had Nick on the show. We just showed the clip of him, and Nick comes on the show from time to time and says, here's the thing, I want to speak out for the parents so that they know what's possible. But as I go through my life, I just want to be known as Nick, not Nick who had autism. And we can all certainly appreciate that, I'm sure. But I do want you to know that for autism, recovery is possible. It is something that is out there. It's very possible. That studies have shown that with the right amount of therapy over the right amount of time and quality ABA therapy, that about 47% of our kids will reach that point of recovery. Isn't that amazing? And it's not just one study, it's multiple studies. 47%. And all the studies that have been done have been right around that number, 47%. It's really very amazing. Okay, great. What happens to the other 53%? And I got to tell you for me, that's really happy news too, because for those other 53% that didn't make it to recovery, they have tremendous progress. There's usually two separate categories, one that makes really tremendous progress, but doesn't reach the point where they're virtually indistinguishable. My son is right there right now. He's made tremendous progress. He's going to have a full and meaningful life, but he's not virtually indistinguishable from his peers right now. And then there's another group that usually has some companion diagnosis as well as autism, twice exceptional, sometimes people refer to it, but they usually have something else going on as well as the autism, and they still make progress too, really substantive progress around things like toileting and communicating, functional communication skills, all those adaptive skills, things along those lines. I still count that as tremendous progress. So again, everybody on the spectrum, tremendous progress using quality ABA for proper amount of time given in the proper not only the duration of time in terms of how often a week, but the number of years, right? Depending on the severity of their condition and their age. But everybody is going to make progress. Isn't that a wonderful thing? It's an absolutely wonderful thing. So I encourage you to look at the studies to see what's there, but recovery is possible. Let's not take away from that 47% who have made it there by bugging it. It does exist. I encourage you to, take a look and see what's possible. And that for that other 53%, tremendous progress. But the huge asterisk is it has to be quality ABA therapy. It has to be given for a proper amount of time, which in all cases means a minimum of 2 years, a minimum of 2 years. If you did ABA therapy and you say to yourself, you're saying to me or to somebody else, it really just didn't happen for us, it really didn't work, and if you did anything less than 2 years, it wasn't enough. And then, of course, there's the duration, the number of hours per week. And we know that 25 to 40 hours a week is really the only window in which you get those kinds of results. So you may have done ABA for 2 years, but if you did it at 5 or 8 or 10 or 15 hours, I got to tell you, it's not enough to get to that result window. You may still have had good results, but you've got to get to that window to get the best. Studies have shown it time and time again, 25 to 40 hours. Now that's a whole other kettle of fish, right? Because that becomes a funding thing. Stay tuned to the show because we'll be talking about how do you fund that? How do you make that happen? But one of the things that I'll tell you right out the gate is that you have the possibility now as a parent to be a part of that team and to be continuing ABA therapy even after your funding hours are over and your therapists have gone home. You can do that through Cardi Learning, and you can use Skills as a companion piece for it to be getting more hours for your child. Don't give up. We don't give up on anybody, right? Stick with us. Tell us how we can help you. Tell us what your biggest problem is in getting to at least 25 hours. Is it the funding? Write into me. Tell me what state you're in, and we'll try to help you to see what options are available to you and what grants are available to you. If it's simply having the time, if it's that you're working and that you don't, write in. Tell us why you can't get to 25 to 40 hours. I really want you to be at 30 hours. I really want you to be at 30 hours. And tell me why you think you can't so I can help you with that. It's so important to you. It's so important to your child. It's important to the rest of your life. So stick with us here on Autism Live. Write into me and tell me what's holding you back, and I'll help you to sort it out. We're going to take a break, and we'll be back in just a minute.
When Maddie was diagnosed, I'll be honest, I was very ignorant on what autism was. I knew that autism was basically something that hit boys at the age of 2 to 3 and shut down. And sometimes you think of the typical Rain Man movie. And with Maddie, she was doing all the same signs and symptoms of a typical child with autism spectrum disorder.
Stand up.
She didn't even acknowledge us coming into the room. She had barely any eye contact. She didn't interact with her sisters. She didn't really do anything. She just basically lined up her toys, and that was about it. We have a team of 7 volunteers, or 8 now. We have 8 volunteers, including my husband and I. And I'm the team leader, and so I do all the curriculum and get everything ready each week.
Jana was downstairs until 11 o'clock at night working on curriculum, going through 2 different textbooks. And then we, as a group, meet on Monday nights, and we would go through what the curriculum was from Jana. And a lot of times we would go, well, how exactly do you do that? How do you sit her at the table and do this trial base? What Skills has done for us, it's taken that away from Jana trying to figure out the curriculum for one. She can go down, or even our laptop, and she can sit down and through all these questions, it comes up with the different programs.
at least for me, it was a relief off my shoulders. I was worried that I might be missing something, missing a curriculum that maybe she needs to know, where skills, they have every possible thing your child needs to know from 0 to 7. They have a program for that.
What noise is this? Good job!
Every program that we did with her, I knew it was specific for what she needed to learn. Because before skills, it was a lot of, okay, well, is that really age appropriate for a 2-year-old? You know, because it's not generalized. It's anywhere from 0 to 7. This is what your child needs to know. In most manuals, you'll find. But for this, okay, yep, she should be learning this. And no, she's not 4 yet. She doesn't need to know that yet.
We are so fortunate that Jana was able to attend a conference put on by CARD that opened the door for skills, and that there's no looking back for us.
We started using the program in November, and it seemed like by January something just clicked, and she has completely kind of came out of her fog that she was in for quite a while.
I have never read a documented case on any child that has not benefited anything from applied behavior analysis, and now with this new skills and being, you know, like the E version of ABA, I can't imagine that it doing anything harmful to their child. It's nothing but exponential growth for us.
To see her now, it just blows us away. I mean, we call her our little miracle child because in 7 months' time, she has just blossomed into this normal, functioning child, and suddenly, we joke about it all the time, like suddenly we have twins.
If you're even thinking about doing it, do it. Because the absolute worst thing you can do is do nothing at all. And even if you use this program and it's just a single mom or a single dad working in the evenings with their child, this program is going to benefit them. It's going to show you where they are, it's going to show you where they need to go, and it's going to show you what skills and how to get there. It is an online book on how to help recover your child.
Welcome back to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod, and we had some more viewer response. I love it when you guys write in, and we asked you today, and I'm laughing because as we just talked to Sunday Stillwell, we got to laugh, right? We got to laugh, and that's part of the reason why I wanted us to do this today. If we have the opportunity to vent, we need to take it and move on, right? The question of the day today was, what makes you the angriest about autism? And you guys you showed up in spades. I just love it. Okay, so somebody wrote in and said the level of ignorance that pervades our society about it, especially among educators who, above all else, should know better. I agree, but I don't think enough is being done to educate our educators. I have to point out that later on today, Dr. Adele Nadowski is going to be doing a webinar for educators that parents can log on to if they want to, that's all about autism and education. And if that's something that you're interested in attending, I know it's probably too late today to get your child's educator to attend, but there's going to be a series of webinars. So if you want to check it out yourself today, you can. You need to reserve a seat though. So go to www.skillsglobal.com, info@skillsglobal.com, info@skillsglobal.com. No, not www, just info@skillsglobal.com. Email them. That's what I want to say. Email info@skillsglobal.com and tell them that you want to reserve a seat. I believe it's happening in just a little over an hour. I'm not sure about the time, but they'll tell you that. You can send the request, and they'll tell you about login information to log on to the webinar. Because I know we want to educate our educators, but to be honest, we need to know how to educate them first. And this is a great way to do it. It's free, by the way, totally free. Okay, another person wrote in and said what makes them the angriest is not knowing how their son feels, for him to be able to verbalize his feelings. Functional communication skills, it's everything, right? I love this one. Those parental experts who think they have all the answers on how you should handle your autistic child's meltdowns when their own children's manners / attitudes are appalling in every way. Oh, can I tell you, that like makes me crazy too. I remember going to a different webinar from a different organization, and it was supposed to be a parental expert who was going to do a talk about how to help children on the spectrum. And oh my gosh, there were just a couple of things that she said that absolutely drove me batty, and talked about endlessly about what she did with her kids and how easy it was. And she had 4 very neurotypical children that she talked about endlessly. Just drove me buggy. I can think of one thing in particular that she said, you know, what's really helpful when you're working with children is whatever it is that you want to be working on, just write it down on a Post-it note. Just write it down on a Post-it note and put it on your refrigerator, and that way it'll remind you endlessly of what it is you're working on. And I thought, lady, if you knew all the things I'm working on with my son, I couldn't do it with a pad of Post-its. I would need to be at the Sears store with that many refrigerators to cover them with the Post-it notes to do all the different things that we're working on. If you thought that it was just going to take one Post-it note for me to work with my child with autism, you clearly have no understanding of what I'm dealing with here. But ask me how I really felt about her. Okay, then she went on to say, I know now I'm off and running. Then she went on to say something about, oh, don't you just hate it at the end of the day when you've had a really busy day and your child has just been like, mommy, 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 mommy. And she said, you just feel like you've been pecked to death. And I remember thinking, you know, my child was completely vocal at that point, but there was a period of time when I would have given everything for my child to say, mommy, 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 mommy. And so offended, so offended. Okay. And this was the expert that was going to help us with autism. Oh, yeah. Okay, another person wrote in and said, people not giving the kids the respect they need, people not giving the kids the respect they need and giving them a go and saying they are hard to understand. Oh, okay. Yeah, our kids are so wonderful and they do deserve respect. Another person wrote in and said, the angriest a lot of things, the bullying of the normal people to my Asperger's son. So sad. Yeah, the bullying, we're going to be doing a lot more shows about that as well, because it's absolutely, it's a huge problem, and I'm getting a new understanding of it with my son in 3rd grade, really seeing how this works. And I have to say that I really wasn't thinking that it was something that came until much later. Can I just be completely honest with you? I really thought that the bullying was this very cut and dried thing, and how horrible, and these horrible teenagers that were being saying horrible things to children, and just horrible, horrible, horrible. And of course, you know how the universe works. Then I have to see it in 3rd grade, and to see these 3rd graders that I've known all along say something to my son, and I'm seeing the genesis of this, and I'm wanting to be mad at 3rd graders, and you can't be because they're still babies. But I'm seeing that we have to help educate the bullies. And that a lot of cases the bullies have been bullied and think that it's acceptable, and we really have to get in there and give all of our kids help. We have to give our kids the help to be able to understand what's happening and to deal with it and have self-esteem so that they can't be as bothered by it, which is not saying that it's okay, but we need to get in there and educate those other kids too, or it's going to continue, and it's going to continue to get worse. So we're going to be talking a lot about that, and we're going to get some experts in here to talk about that. Then another person says, because my son looks like all the other kids and does not physically show that he has Asperger's, people seem to think he is just trying to be a pain in the you-know-what and needs disciplining. Yeah, that's a lot of our kids, whether it's Asperger's or not. Just one of those things. Okay, we have to take a quick break, and we're going to come back to close out the show. Stick with us.
The Autism Society exists to improve the lives of all affected by autism. We work to increase public awareness about the day-to-day issues faced by people on the spectrum, advocate for appropriate services for individuals across their lifespan, and provide the latest information regarding treatment, education, research, and advocacy. For more information, visit www.autismsociety.org.
Welcome back. I told you quick break. We were just taking a very quick break. I hope that you have enjoyed the show today. We're at the end of the show. We've had a name change, so we are now Autism Live instead of Skills Live. We'd love to hear from you what you think about that. And we've made some other changes format-wise. We're going to be delivering things to you in a little bit shorter segments, and you're going to see us on a lot more devices, so that if you can't catch the live show, we're trying to make it as easy as possible for you to get this information. But I always go back to the core thing of please tell us what it is you need. That's really what we're here for from the beginning of the day to the end of the day, is to be able to help you. That's what I've been charged with, to be the conduit. I'm the sticky between, right? That if you need something, send it on over to me and I'm gonna hunt it down for you. And that's my pleasure to do that. I mentioned earlier in the show that at first when my son was diagnosed, I was up walking the floors going, what on earth are we going to do? What on earth are we going to do? And I don't know what I did right in my life, but I ended up at the right place at the right time, and I had access to the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. And not only that, because I live in the state of California, it was paid for by the state of California, because let me just tell you, I could not have afforded it. And had it come down to the only way my child was going to get help was based on what I was going to have in my bank account, I don't know what I would have done, because there wasn't anything there. And I know that there are some of you who are out there that is what you're living with on a daily basis, and don't think for a moment that I didn't think about that, because I did. When my son started to get the help and I saw that we were getting him back, then I was up walking the floor thinking about all the people who did not have what I had. So I am thrilled to be able to be here and be your conduit to help you in whatever way that I can. Please know that nothing gives me, well, I won't say nothing, because my child gives me great joy, but it also gives me great joy to be able to help you, because from a mother's heart, I know what that is when you're sitting there and you don't know what to do, and sometimes even worse, you do know what to do, but you can't do it. And I want to tell you that there is nothing that you can't do, and that nothing that we can't do together. And you probably have heard that from other people, but I want to help you to figure it out. I said this before, write to me and tell me what your problem is, and we will start to help to sort it out. I know that it's not equal and even everywhere. Some people have insurance and some people don't. And some people live in a state where they're going to pay for things, and some people don't. But we have pulled together a bunch of different resources, and I won't promise you that things can change overnight, but hopefully we can help you to find an answer, or be helping you to work towards an answer. And I apologize if that doesn't sound good enough, but we have been able to help some people to figure out the way in which they can approach this, and you could be the next person to do that, and we really are very serious about that. So take the time, write into us. I'm gonna in just a minute cycle through it at the end of the show all the different ways that you can get in touch with us, but I always like to end the show with a little parent-to-parent moment, because so many people were so helpful to me along the way, and I want to go back to the first statement that I made, which is that you can't get through this by yourself. You just can't. You got to pool your resources where they are, and lean on the people that you can lean on. And as you look around wherever you're sitting today, in whatever circumstances that you're sitting in, and think to yourself, who do I have to lean on? Who can I be honest with? You got to have somebody that you can say when things are bad, and because there are going to be days when you're going to sit there and go, I don't think I can do this. And I want you to know that it's okay to feel that. It's not the truth, though. You can do this. I know that you can. But you need somebody in your corner that you can tell on those days when you're feeling like that fear of, oh my gosh, but what if I can't? That's a very human thing, and I don't know a single person who didn't feel that way at least one day. And a lot of us felt it on a lot of different days. So if you're feeling it more than one day, you are not alone. But ask yourself, who do I have to lean on? And it wouldn't be a bad idea to call that person up and thank them and say, I just want you to know that I was sitting there today and I was thinking, who do I have to lean on? And it's you. I am so glad and grateful that I have you in my life because you're the person that I can lean on. And if you are sitting there right now and very genuinely feeling like you don't have anybody to lean on, write into us. Lean in on us. Lean in on me. You can find me on Facebook, friend me, lean away. And I'm sure that if you wrote on any of our Facebook sites today and said, I need somebody to lean on, there are other parents who get it. We definitely get it. I want you to know that, there's a big campaign right now for young people that all these stars have said it gets better. I want you to know that if you position yourself in a place where you're seeking out help, this gets better too. You got to be willing to ask for the help, though. I know that's one of the hardest things in the world, and I said to you guys at the beginning of the show 3 hours ago, I still sometimes think, well, I should be able to figure this out on my own. I should be able to handle this. I should be able to do this. Yeah, that's a really good story, but it doesn't have a good ending because you can't. I can't. You can't. None of us can do this by ourselves. And, none of our kids came into this world with an owner's manual. And, and if there is an owner's manual for autism, you certainly don't get it at the hospital, right? But each one of our kids is different. But if we follow a certain set of principles, ABA, we know scientifically proven to be effective with all of our kids. So if you're sitting there and thinking, not my kid, I want you to know, yes, your kid. Your kid can be helped by this. Okay, so that's my little spiel for today. I want to remind you that there are lots of ways to get in touch with us. We're going to cycle through a bunch of those, lots of different ways to watch the program, lots of different ways to get a hold of us. You can email us, you can phone us, you can Skype us, you can Facebook, you can tweet, you can watch us on Blip, you can find us on iTunes now. There are so many different places to find us. I hope you'll take advantage of it. I hope you'll listen in. We're tagging everything so that if there's a specific topic that you want to see what we've already covered, that you can watch it. But if there's a specific topic that you're really wanting more information about, I got a little emotional there, sorry. Write in, call in, tell us. If you say, Shannon, I really want to hear about toileting, then I will get something together about toileting and I'll get an expert in here talking about toileting. If you really want to know about biting, we're going to be talking about IEPs and about bullying and all those other things. But if you need something in a faster schedule, just tell us and we'll be happy to provide that for you. We're here for you because you're doing one of the most amazing jobs there is. And I gotta tell you that I have the great pleasure of working with a bunch of people who are so passionate about helping our kids because they know they can help our kids. And that's awesome news for all of us. They helped my child, they've helped thousands of other children, and they want to provide your child help too. And guess what? It's all free here, free information. So that's a wonderful thing. Stick with us, like us on Facebook. We're now Autism Live, name change, but we're providing more information than ever. So stick with us. We're going to be back tomorrow at 9 o'clock. Tomorrow at 11 o'clock, we're going to have Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. Until tomorrow, please give your kiddos a hug from me. Bye-bye for now.